Welcome, everyone, to episode 108 of the Looks Like a Movie podcast. My name's Kevin. I'm here with Doug and Owen, and today we're talking about two movies, Mickey 17 and In the Lost Lands. But first, as always, we can talk about what we watched this past week. Douglas, I'm going to make you go first because you were
Uh,
unprepared.
shit. Okay. I watched. Oh, of course, I forgot I watched these. Um, I
Always
watched.
good sign.
I watched Panda Plan
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
with our friend. I watched Panda Plan, which is a kids movie directed by Zhang Luan. Or Zhang. Yeah, Zhang Luan. Starring Jackie Chan, where Jackie Chan plays himself. Um, and it's all about. Okay, here's the plot of Panda Plan, right? It's all about Jackie Chan is like filming a movie, and then his agent is like, "Oh, there's all these events that you're invited to. Like, where should we go?" And he's like listing all these things, and Jackie's like, "No, no, no." And then Jackie's like, "Oh, this zoo in this like some like island or whatever has invited you to adopt a panda," and Jackie's like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, let's go do that." But then this Saudi prince wants to steal the panda,
Mm.
so he hires like a team of like super elite mercenaries to go steal the
Yeah.
panda. But Jackie Chan is there adopting the panda as they come in.
Hmm.
So then Jackie Chan has to prevent the mercenaries from stealing the panda, right?
Hmm.
But then I'm going to spoil this movie because it's like a Chinese movie without US distribution that nobody's going to watch. And it's a kid's movie that's fucking dumb and bad. But then at the end of the movie, right, after like, people were terrorized, uh, Jackie meets the Saudi prince. And he's like, why do you want the panda so bad? And get this, because the Saudi prince's daughter has leukemia
Uh,
and was in love with the panda. They would go to the
mm.
zoo all the time to see the panda.
Yeah.
So then the movie ends with Jackie Chan having adopted the panda and then giving the panda to the daughter. Yeah. So I
Mm.
watched that.
That was it?
That's the
Mhm.
whole
That,
movie. I
that
like
was
Oh,
literally
that
that
was.
was the entire movie.
That's not your
I mean
week though.
there's
That's
no,
not.
no. There's
oh
yeah. That's what I was saying. I was like, is that the only thing?
yeah, and then I watched Mickey 17 3 times.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That.
And
That.
And in the Lost Lands.
and in the Lost Lands, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. I didn't watch a lot either. The day after the Oscars, I watched two movies, one of which was totally unrelated. I watched Deja Vu, which I have seen before, but quite a long time ago. I was a wee lad last time I watched Deja Vu, and I remember it being cool. And as I was watching it, I was like, there's certain scenes that I remember. Um, but mostly it felt like watching it for the first time again, because it's obviously a lot better watching it now as an adult who's interested in movies rather than a 13-year-old who just really likes Denzel Washington. Um, really good movie, Deja Vu. And then the second movie that day was Honora in theaters because it had just one Best Picture the previous night. So that was my third time watching Honora. Um,
Damn.
it's fun, I like it. It's very entertaining. I will say, like a lot of the things that it's not like and I said this already. It's not my favorite of the Best Picture nominees. Like obviously, it's if any movie could win, it's not the movie I would have been rooting for. But like as far as Best Picture nominee or Best Picture winners, I should say, go, pretty acceptable winner. Pretty happy with that. At least in recent history, and like I have enjoyed it kind of more every time. Like seeing it again that third time, I was just like, I don't know, the stuff that bothered me the first time I watched it when we were at the festival bothers
Mm-hmm.
me less and less every time I rewatch it. I don't know if I'm gonna like, it'll probably be a
Ivy
while
Wolf
until I
every
no.
time less and less.
I forgot that she
That's
was in
so
that
funny
movie.
that she's just like in a Best Picture winner. But no, yeah, I like again, it'll probably be a long time now before I watch Nora again. Three times is probably good for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've really enjoyed, like I don't know, even like some of like the little things like when we watched it the first time, I kind of like was just a bit. There were moments where I was like, okay, this movie's getting long, and there's just like a lot of stuff that I thought was repetitive. And then like when I watch it now, I'm just like, oh, this kind of like flies by. Like actually, this is all just super entertaining. So there's like little things where I'm like, yeah, I really like this movie. I'm fine with it having won Best Picture.
Yeah,
Uh,
Anora is awesome. Do you think?
yeah.
Okay, do you still? How does it stack up to some of his other movies that you've seen, like
Yeah,
Red
I've been
Rockets
thinking
and The
about
Florida
that.
Project?
I think what really needs to happen is I would need to rewatch the Florida Project to make a decision. But other than the Florida Project, I do think it's my favorite. Like I
Interesting. Okay.
I
Okay. Okay.
I don't know, but there's like things that like, and I said this in my initial review where there were like things that bothered me that I think I was just like wrong about. Like something I really appreciated about Tangerine was that like there was like a community but between these two, like a sense of community between these two people that like Honora just like does not have, and I thought that was like really charming, like there's Honora never really, but it's not the same story, so it's like it's like a weird complaint. Yeah, I don't know. I think now having seen Honora 3 times, it's probably my favorite, uh unless I rewatch the Florida Project and like it more. But I've
Did you?
watched, I watched Tangerine pretty recently, and same with Red Rocket. So, um,
Did you see the that Neon spent 3 times the budget of Anora on its Oscar campaign?
and it ended up
It's so
being worth
crazy.
it, honestly.
I know, it's just so
But
crazy.
also I
Movies
saw
are
that
silly. That's stupid.
the thing that they said though was that like even still, it's less money than they spent on the Parasite campaign, and obviously Parasite was a huge deal too. So it's like clearly the
It's
money's
just
worth
so
it if they
expensive.
won best.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure, but like if they won Best Picture in 2020, they won it again 5 years later. Like this is probably a good place to put your money. And now the movie gets like, recognition over time and gets money as a result over time. So like it ends up, I mean, Parasite has made so much money like after winning Best Picture. So it's worth it
Yeah.
in the end. And then I finished watching, I should say, I brought it up a couple podcasts ago. I finished watching Angels in America, the series based on the play.
Hmm.
That shit is so good. Like it's like unbelievably good. It's not even really a series. It's like essentially just a 6-hour film, but it was released through HBO in 2003 as like episodic. I think originally they released it as 2 3-hour movies, and then they released it again as 6 1-hour episodes. But it's pretty much just a movie. I mean, it's directed by Mike Nichols. Like it's like, it's like it's not just like shitty TV. But then it's also just like the best writing that anybody has done in the last 20-ish years. It's like unbelievable. I really don't know how to like compare it. The thing that I see it compared to most often is not something that I, can talk about, but like everybody I know kind of just says that it's like Twin Peaks, but for a different subject matter. Like it's very often compared to Twin Peaks, and I have not seen Twin Peaks, so I'm not going to comment. But it's really fucking good. And like up until sort of recently, I had never even really known about it. Like I guess I'd heard the name Angels in America because the play is very famous, but this whole like series slash movie existing was just like not a thing on my radar until very recently. And I'm like shocked because of how good the cast is and how good the writing is. And like it just feels like one of those things that should have had a very long shelf life where people just still talk about it all the time 20 years later. But
Well, it aired on
um
TV, you know?
sure, but like so
and
did
and it's also like it's a like the play does, right? Like obviously is like super
yeah, the
super
play
important,
is very
but
famous. Yeah.
we don't talk about plays.
I remember when the time that I had originally heard about it was when, I guess it was when Jeffrey Wright did American Fiction, and he was getting like a lot of recognition for his performance in American Fiction. There was kind of like a lot of talk about his career because he was just like, Jeffrey Wright probably not as appreciated as he should be. And when that was happening, I saw a lot of people referencing his performance in Angels in America and talking about like how much that meant to them. And that's when I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. And then and they showed, like, I remember seeing a clip of him in it, and I was like, oh. And now I finally watched it. I'm like, man, Jeffrey Wright's really good in that show. um, yeah. Anyway, I watched Angels in America. I watched a bunch of other shows. Like I'm watching The Pit, of course, which I want to talk about extensively, but I won't, to save people's uh You know, I don't. It's just nobody wants to hear me talk about the Pit, um, but people should watch the Pit. It's like really
Oh
good.
my
Like if you,
fucking god.
no, I'm just saying if you're like at all
If you're into
interested in
like
any,
Pittsburgh, if you're into like doctor
no, if you are just
shows,
like if you are just like a person who watches TV that is like actively coming out, like who is not watching old shows and you want to watch like new television, The Pit is like the show that's airing right now. Like probably better than
bro,
Severance if I
Severance.
had to
I was
guess.
gonna say
I don't,
Severance is
that's
airing
not
right now.
important. That's not important. The Pit is the show everybody should be watching. And White Lotus is also a new episode of White Lotus tonight that I'm excited for. Blah blah blah.
Streets are saying that White
Um,
Lotus is boring.
who said that?
The
Bill
streets.
Simmons.
Oh, well, I mean, Bill Sim.
Hey, that's the streets. I don't know. That's what I heard.
Listen, I mean, I guess it's like, yeah, we're 3 episodes deep now. Tonight's episode 4, I guess. So something should pick up. I thought the last episode was pretty entertaining. I think the first episode is always pretty boring because all of the stuff that the White Lotus is known for, like, does not happen in the first episode. The first episode is always just like endless setup because there's so many characters and it's like only like a 6 episode season. So they just like introduce everybody. But like the last 2 episodes have been entertaining. I don't know. That's not my experience with it, but that's fine. I don't think it's as good as last season, but you know, we got 3 episodes to go. We'll see what happens. Um, and then I watched Mickey 17 and then The Lost Sons. And then last night I watched The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which I won't talk about for now, but good movie. I really liked that movie. Um, could be Fincher's best on a certain day. If you ask Doug, it just is. But for me, on a certain day, it could be his best. It's really fucking good. So that was my week. Owen, you want to take it away?
Yeah, just right out the bat for the week, just blasted 4 Woody Allen movies in a row.
Oh Jesus!
Uh, Manhattan Murder Mystery. Oh, last week I watched Blue Jasmine for the Oscar episode. And I was like, kind of in this. I was like, I don't really like that, and I was like, maybe I watched all the good Woody Allen movies, or at least all the ones that I like, because I was kind of in a period where I was like, yeah, these are fine, but like they're all kind of ending at like the bottom of my list, where I wasn't really getting any new like, oh, this is amazing. But then I watched Manhattan Murder Mystery, and I was like, oh, this movie's raw. This movie's awesome. This movie's so cool. It's it's kind of structured. Well, it's got the typical kind of Woody Allen stuff, but it's like, oh, his wife is convinced that their neighbor killed his wife, and she's like trying to figure it out. Um, it's really awesome. And it's a lot of fun. And it's just like, let's just put Woody Allen in these like crazy circumstances where he's trying to discover, or he's basically being like a detective. And then I watched Mighty Aphrodite, which is another 90s film. Manhattan Murder Mystery came out in 93. This one came out in 95. That was good as well. Not as good as Manhattan Murder Mystery, but I did enjoy it. It does a lot with like the Greek gods, and they'll cut to like literal Greece, and they're doing like all these crazy like theatrics and stuff. But the movie is kind of structured around Helena Bonham Carter is Woody Allen's wife, and they don't want to have a kid, so they adopt a kid. And then Woody Allen is like, "Oh, this kid's amazing. I gotta find who the mom is." And
Do we
so
have
it's
any
like,
comments about Woody Allen's wife in real life?
that's for the separate. We have actually that's a Patreon exclusive
Yeah.
segment that Doug's doing by himself.
Huh.
But so he has to go find who the parent of this amazing child is, and that's kind of what the movie's about. There's like all this like really crazy. I mean, it's not that crazy, but there's like really interesting photography of Woody Allen in this boxing gym where it's like a normal like phone call scene, but he's just on the phone, and there's just like people like fighting in front of him. Really, there's some cool stuff in that one. And then I watched Interiors, which is it's a film from the 70s, which is like Woody Allen wants to be Bergman, and that's kind of like his most like wannabe Bergman movie. That's what they call this one. Like this is it's very different, and it's not one of my favorites. I know some people really dig it, but it's like it's not. It's much more of a drama. There's some cool stuff in it, but I don't know if I was totally like in the mood for what it was giving me. And then I rewatched A Rainy Day in New York, which I hadn't seen. This is the first Woody Allen movie I saw, and then I saw it. I've seen it twice, and then I hadn't seen like a bunch of the other stuff. So then I watched all these other ones, and now I'm revisiting it with that kind of more knowledge of his filmography. And I still really like this movie. This movie is so fucking funny, and it's like it's super bizarre, and the fact that it stars Timothy Chalamet and Elle Fanning, and they're doing like Woody Allen.
Selena Gomez
Also in this
Yeah.
movie. Jude Law is in it. Lev Shriver's in it. It's hilarious. Timothy Chalamet is like he's like just a gambling addict. It's really ridiculous. But they kind of hear, and this is like post Call Me by Your Name, but it's still like in that early era of Timothy Chalamet. Like it's like young Timothy Chalamet, and he's doing kind of a Woody Allen impression. It's really fucking funny. And then
Close
I
are you
watched,
to having watched all his movies?
not close. He has like 50 movies.
Yo, he has like
But
50
haven't you
movies.
seen like 30 of them now?
I've probably seen like 18.
Oh, okay. I thought you had seen way
So
more.
he
Okay.
has like, yeah, he has a lot of
Yeah.
fucking movies.
No, I know he has a lot. I just
Let
thought
me
you were
see.
like over halfway there now at this point.
It
It
says
feels like for at
36%.
least the last like 2 months you've had one Woody Allen movie on the
It
pod
says
every week.
36% on Letterboxd.
Okay. But that's like including like shorts or something probably too, right? Like how many feature length movies are
I
there?
know he has like he did this TV show with Miley Cyrus in
Oh.
2016. It's like a 6-part miniseries with Miley Cyrus. I haven't seen that, but it's that's on here as well. But it's not really any shorts. There might be like, I guess there's one short, but like yeah, he's like 50 movies. So I'm probably like 40% of his filmography. And then I watched Duck Soup, the Marx Brothers film from 1933, which
one of Conan's favorite movies.
yeah, no, actually, I think that's why I was like, oh, I gotta finally watch it, because I saw that, and it's been something I've been meaning to watch for a while, but I saw that Letterboxd thing, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is gonna make me watch it. I forget which Woody Allen movie it's in too. There's a Woody Allen.
Always
It might
comes
be
back to Woody.
maybe it's Annie Hall. There's a one Woody Allen movie where they go to see Duck Soup. And it's like one of his favorite movies as well.
Speaking of Annie Hall, did you guys see Skip Bayless's top 10
Yeah,
movies?
Yes.
which was actually like kind of a
He's just an old
crazy
guy.
good list for what I expected from Skip
Yeah.
Bayless. Yeah, I mean, I guess he was just like
Oh, it is.
an
It's
older
Hannah and Her
older guy,
Sisters,
but
which is one of my
like
favorites of his. Yeah,
but it wasn't
it was
even
great. He had Woody and Polanski in there.
yeah, no, he
Yeah.
did.
Well, his favorite
And,
movie
like-
was Chinatown, and he described Chinatown. He was like, it's like Casablanca but upgraded. It's like,
No, yeah. Well,
But
I
also,
was like,
like-
I think it was like Silent Dawn or someone who reposted it, and was like, "You're never gonna believe what the #1 movie is." And then I was like, then it was Chinatown.
it's
I was
not
like,
that
oh.
crazy.
I was expecting it to be some
Yeah.
like stupid like something like, I don't know what even would be. something
It's not
dumb, but,
that
like,
crazy, but also he's like in that age group where like
there
he
were
could've
bad
just
movies on the
listed-
list, but I don't
Yeah,
think-
no,
What was
yeah.
number 10? What was
Chinatown
number
and-
10?
I don't remember, but he had like Blazing Saddles on the list, and he had
Oh,
like
sure, but that's like
Well, it
that's-
was
yeah.
funny. Someone pointed this out, but he was like, "Blazing Saddles, my only comedy on this list," and then the next
then he
movie
says
was like
Annie
Annie Hall. It was
Yeah.
like, all right. Shout out Skip Bayless. But I was like ready for it to be like really awful, and then there was like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I was expecting because he's like in that age bracket where it's like it could have just been like a dad list. Like it could have just been
it's kind
What
of,
do
it
we
isn't kind of a
think?
dad list, but it's just like
sure, but like not like that. Like it wasn't like
sure.
you know, Shawshank Redemption
I'm
and like
trying to-
Field of Dreams or something.
Field of
Like,
Dreams. What do you think Stephen A. Smith's favorite movie is?
The Dark
it's-
Knight. No, he didn't
probably-
not like that movie.
No, he didn't.
What
like
is
the
Dark Knight?
Yeah,
Like,
he didn't
rant
like that
about
movie because Maggie Gyllenhaal wasn't hot enough.
Yeah.
that's the whole
That's an
thing.
all-time. That's an all-time.
His favorite movie is probably. Gosh, I don't know.
It says probably something you can find.
Yeah,
Stephen
he's probably
A.
talked about it. It's
It's like The Godfather or something. Favorite movie.
What if it's I don't know. I'm trying to think of basketball movies that he would like. What if
Stephen
it's like
A.
He Got
Smith
Game?
gets his top 4 movies ripped apart by others. What is this? Tiago Splitter? He did it. He did a Letterboxd top 4. He
Oh yeah,
did
he did.
Gladiator, Training Day,
That's
A Few
right. I
Good
was gonna
Men, and
say
Malcolm
Training
X.
Day. I was gonna say
That's his
Training
top
Day.
4.
Yeah, that's actually not that bad.
That's totally fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah, shout out Stephen
People
A.
love Training Day.
He was
Training
actually,
Day,
yeah.
one of like the most
My
like
mom is trying to get me. Has
that's
been
like
trying to
dad
get me to watch
core,
Training Day
like
for like 2 years, and I'm
you've
like,
never seen
Training Day
Training?
for a certain generation is literally like fucking Shawshank Redemption.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
totally okay
Well,
movie. It's
well,
like a
I
totally
mean,
fine movie.
Shawshank Redemption.
saying
It's like
saying
the same kind of
saying
generation.
for a certain generation, it's like Shawshank Redemption is crazy because those movies came out within like 5 years of each other.
But you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's the
You know
same
what I'm saying?
generation.
You get what I'm saying though? You know what I
No,
mean?
I know what you're saying. It is
There we go.
Training Day is like a beloved movie by a lot of
It's like
people, but
Moonlight
those
is kind of
same
like a
people love.
parasite for like a certain generation.
No. That's it's a little different than that. It's a little different than that.
Um,
Training Day
no,
is
yeah,
good
people
though.
love Training. I like Training Day. I like Training Day quite a bit. I mean, it's been a
Yep,
long time.
it's good.
I was in
It
high school
is.
the last time I watched
It
it,
is.
but
It's
uh,
like Training Day. It has hype. It has hype moments and aura, so it kind of like
yeah,
Two of our
yeah,
greatest working actors.
yeah,
Yeah, and they're both really good in it, and that's
yeah. They
why
are both
it's
really
so
good in it.
Yeah,
rememberable.
yeah. That's why I'm like,
But he had
I'm
you
sure
said he
it's
had Malcolm X
fine.
in there too, right? He has 2 Denzel
Yeah.
movies in the top 4.
Yeah, and a Cruise, and
Yeah,
a Russell Crowe movie.
yeah.
I wonder what Stephen A. He probably hated Gladiator too.
He probably didn't watch it. People
Paul
don't
Mescal,
watch
he's
new movies anymore, bro.
No, I mean it's
Yeah.
Gladiator, right? Like I feel like
Sure,
if you're
I
like
guess.
if you're
That
like
could be
if
a
you're
reason.
like
That could be a reason
It's
for
not
him
like
not to watch
Avatar.
it.
if you're
It's not
like
like Avatar.
if you're like Gladiator is my favorite movie and you're like, nah, I don't want to watch the second one. I feel like that's kind of like, I mean, like that's what it's like. Like that's what it's like.
But some
I
people
think
are
that's a
like that,
lot of
though.
people.
That's
No,
like
but
a
I
lot of
feel,
some people
I
don't want to
feel
see a
like
sequel to a
the
movie that
guys
came
who
out 20
haven't
years
seen a
ago.
movie in 20 years were like, oh, I'm gonna go see Gladiator
No,
too.
but like imagine this though. Here's the thought process. Like Gladiator's like your favorite movie, and then you hear that there's a second one, but it's like a new thing, and you're like, oh, they're not bringing fucking Russell Crowe back. It's like a different guy. It's
Oh,
like,
it's like
and you're
woke.
like, whatever, you know?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like woke.
Yeah.
Damn.
Anyway, was that your week?
No, Gladiator
Okay.
2 is woke.
Okay.
They said. I saw Golden 80s, the Chantal Ackerman film in theaters.
Gladiwoke 2.
This movie is awesome. This movie is so cool. Definitely like clear like Godard influence, but that's like clear in a lot of her work. But definitely in this one, it's about this movie. It's about this movie. It's about these characters. It's all set in a mall, and there is this one family who owns like this clothing shop, and there's the other the other shop is this like kind of hairdresser shop, and it's you know there's a musical element to it, but it's sort of like one person likes this person, and then there's like there's a lot of different like kind of love things going on, but they can't really exactly have the person that they love, so they might go marry somebody else just because, and there's a lot of like weird stuff going on. There's a different like will they, won't they sort of things, but it's really like over the top, very 80s like colorful mall musical, and it's beautiful, and it's really amazingly shot and blocked, and super funny. One of her best films for sure. So it's really cool to see that in the theater. I've seen a couple. There's still some like major works I gotta check out from her, but really great filmmaker. And then I watched. I like was kind of, I think, I don't know. It was one of those movies where I had on my watch list, but then I was I kept searching. I kind of do this thing where I will have like a movie in my brain where I was like, I need to find this movie that I'm not that even I know it exists, but I'm creating a movie in my brain, and I need to find as many versions of this movie that exist in the world for like inspiration sort of. So I was like, I need to find this type of movie. So I was like looking like at lists and trying to find this type of movie. And I stumbled on What Happened Was, the Tom Noonan movie, who's Tom Noonan, actor, famous actor in a lot of these movies, but he directed this movie What Happened Was in 1994. And it was kind of like exactly what I was looking for. Really great. Kevin, you should definitely check this one out.
I've wanted to watch this movie for
It's
like
so
so
good.
long.
It's so
'Cause
good.
I see this movie often on my
It's so
it's
good.
been on my watch list for a while now, but I look at it often and I'm like, I should watch
Yeah,
this at some
it's
point.
so good. It's set entirely in this apartment building, and it starts with this girl played by Karen Silas, who's like getting ready for the date, and then her date comes to her apartment building, and then like the whole movie is this date that they have, and it's so good. Really recommend checking it out. It's on YouTube. Like the new restoration is just on YouTube. So
Nice.
uh, it's pretty easy to find. And then I watched Mickey 17, and then I watched In the Lost Lands, and then I watched Wanda from 1970, another it's kind of a very important independent film, which is really good. And then I found this movie Honeymoon from 1998, which is like another one where I was like, I'm searching for a specific thing, and it has like 500 logs on Letterboxd, but it's this independent film about this guy and this girl who they like each other, they don't like each other, they don't really know yet. They decide to get married, but they don't have sex before they get married. And then he can't fucking get hard. And then it's like it's the rest of the movie is like the kind of conflict of like them like not being able to have sex now that they're married now, and then they can't have sex, and it's really it's pretty good. I did like it. But yeah, that one was fun as well. But it was kind of comes out of like me searching for specific kind of movies that I'm like I need to find if a movie like this exists, and then going down rabbit holes and finding
What was the inspiration there?
Not having sex before you get married is so crazy. That's so crazy.
the inspiration there. I forget what I was just looking for like dating movies and just two people talking. And this was something that maybe like the first half was more of something that I was pulling from. But because there's like half for the first kind of third of the movie is like them coming to the conclusion that they're going to get married. So they're like kind of dating and talking and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And then like the second part is them being married now and being like, oh fuck, we're like we actually like we're having really bad troubles. There's like this is not working out, but they're like trying to like stay married. It's pretty cool. It's like it feels kind of similar to some of those like mumblecore films from that era, like very low budget indie film. And yeah, that's all I watched this week.
Nice. All right, let's start with Mickey 17, the bigger movie of the two. New Bong Joon-ho movie. His first movie since Parasite 6 years ago. Now obviously this one was
Six.
yeah. I mean obviously this one was supposed to come out a year ago, so it would have only been a 5-year gap,
It's still big.
but we
That's
get
still
it
a big gap.
now. Yeah, that's still a big gap regardless. But yeah, first movie since Parasite. Owen's first Bong Joon-ho movie,
Yeah.
period. Your first time watching a
Yeah.
Bong Joon-ho film. I feel like that's where we should start because I wanted to kind of ask Doug about where this falls, but Doug has seen other Bong Joon-ho movies. You have not. So what was that experience like?
For me.
Yeah, for you, obviously.
um, I've seen a lot of people like one of the common criticisms I've seen from people is like it's it's definitely similar to like a lot of stuff that he's already done. And like I don't know, you guys
Yes.
can talk about that where it's like it definitely feels like Oaksha Part 2 in some ways. Um,
Yes.
but so like for me, like I had no like none of that it mattered to me because I had no kind of pre-existing opinions with those other films. So that for me, like I don't know if that would bother me necessarily if I'd seen the other stuff, but I really enjoyed it. I wasn't really sure. I was like, oh, I'll probably like it, but I wasn't sure how much I was gonna like it because I just had no frame of reference for his other films. And I've wanted to watch Oaksha. Oaksha was actually one of the ones I was like, oh, this might be. I like that because like I kept seeing the those like cute little animals in
Yeah.
the thing. I was
Yes.
like, oh, this one has all these little jolly guys, and I
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, that's something
really
we could talk about because
the
that's
pigs in
Uh,
Okja are very cute, and that's like one of the
Yeah.
big like comparisons to
yeah,
Okja. I will say though, it is David Elric. I mean, he just has the benefit of seeing the movie before everybody else. He put
Yeah.
it very succinctly, where he said this Mickey 17 is very much Okja combined with Snowpiercer. It's like
Yeah.
Okja plus
yeah,
plus
just as like
Snowpiercer
But
equals Mickey
also it's
17.
just
English
like
films.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's just like how he has like two kinds of movies really. I mean, because he's
Yeah,
only made like 8 movies or whatever. I guess this is his eighth like feature, and like it it's literally just either like the Oakja Snowpiercer Mickey 17 thing, or it's like Memories of Murder and Mother and like that kind of vibe.
yeah,
Like it's like but and I think a large part of that is just the difference between making a movie in Korea and making an English language movie. But
yeah.
like
I think it's
yeah,
interesting.
I don't know.
Well, because
I
like
don't know
he
that I
obviously, I don't know if I watched some interviews that he did with Robert Pattinson in the lead up for this, because
did as
they're
well.
both such jolly guys, both
Yeah.
really great guys. Bong obviously does not speak fluent English. Like
Yeah,
he
no.
knows some, but he obviously cannot speak like a whole conversation in English. So it's
Right.
like directing a movie. The fact that he's directed multiple movies in English is so crazy to me. Actually,
Yeah.
I have no idea what that process is like.
No, right, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I saw it was funny because I saw the like when he did this like the letterbox four favorites thing, they asked his interpreter what her four favorites were as well. And I'm like, I'm wondering how yeah, how that process works where it's like if she's probably just with him on set all the time and like
Yeah, definitely.
and helping with that. Yeah, I don't know. That must be an interesting position to be in, to like be an interpreter and have to like help get a director's vision across like interpreting
Well,
it. But
I was really interested in her role, and I think it's really, I mean, it's a great gig because I think she's a filmmaker as well. So like to kind of
oh
just
wow.
be around Bong Joon-ho all the time and just be able to
Yeah.
soak in as much as you can and kind of have that relationship is like amazing for someone who's also
Yeah.
trying to make work like that.
It also would make sense when you see her four favorites, because when she listed her four favorites, I was like, "Oh, this like she knows what she's talking
Yeah,
about." Like
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
not like a
It's not some
shitty
like
list. It was like
they're I don't. It's
she
like
had a
it's like
movie on there where I was like, "I have never heard of this," and I looked it up and I was like, "This looks fucking awesome."
yeah.
It had like 2,000 watches on Letterboxd. I was like, "This looks fucking sick."
I think it's smart to not only have an interpreter, but like the interpreter who knows
Yeah,
like what the fuck's going on. They're not like they're not role singularly just to interpret. They're
yeah,
definitely like involved in that filmmaking element, so they
yeah.
kind of can.
But
Yeah,
back to that subject, it's like I don't know. It is Okja mixed with Snowpiercer. It's also just like
mhm.
this is what his English language movies are like. Like
Yeah,
it's just like this
Yeah,
is
they're
just like
much
what he
still all like
does.
yeah. He has three
Um,
English language movies
yeah,
now, and they're all sillier, like kind of
yeah.
slapstick almost. I mean,
yeah,
Snowpiercer is a little more serious, but it's also like Snowpiercer is ridiculous in its
Snowpiercer
own
has.
way.
I mean, there's
Like
what's it like? Tilda Swinton's character in Snowpiercer is like the
yeah,
same. It's in the same world as these other two movies. Like it
yeah.
still
It's
has
like
the
he make
same
it's
stuff.
it's like
Um,
his American movies are like cartoons, and then
yeah,
his like Korean movies are like
yeah.
real movies.
yeah.
Well,
It's
I think
like
it's interesting the way like I feel like it's a view of like how it's almost like you're making something for a specific audience, where it's like this is how you view like
yeah.
American like as like
That
dumb,
is like
like
so
clap your
definitely
hands,
true
watch
too.
the
Like it,
stupid cartoon.
this is 100% the experience is that like this is how he thinks about America, which makes them more entertaining. Like
Yeah,
it's like, and I think what Doug said is important, which is just that like he's such a jolly guy. Like I'm like I was
oh yeah,
when I was going to see Mickey 17 and I was talking about it, I was like I'm just so excited because he is like kind of for me like the ultimate like comfort filmmaker where I'm just like this is just like a guy who I love, like seeing him talk
mhm,
about movies or whatever. Like he is just like it's so infectious the way he talks about movies, and he just seems so sweet. And I really like I think that makes, I mean we're going to talk about some of this stuff, but I think that makes like a lot of the things that I enjoy about his English language movies that much more enjoyable. Like we're saying, like it's kind of how he views America or whatever, and like the satire in the movies and like the comedy in the movies I think is as funny as it is because Bong Joon-ho is doing it. And like if someone else was doing it, I would just be like, okay, whatever, dude. But because it's him, I think it's fucking hilarious. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's your experience, Doug, since you have seen some of his other movies, but
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I, I was saying this because uh, I've been telling people this. Bong Joon-ho, he's like my little like liberal. He's like my little lib
Yeah,
guy, and it's like, cause all of
Yeah.
his movies are very, I guess like not like Memories of Murder and stuff like a little bit less, but like a lot of his movies are very like, specifically his three American movies are very like so
yeah,
lib coded in ways that I think is very endearing and
same.
good.
Yeah, but
Um,
not entirely my experience with his South Korean work, which is like I think a little bit like I think Memories of Murder is actually like a lot more radical than anything that he's like doing in America. Um, and I guess Parasite, there's probably a lot to break down there, but like at least the attempt is there for something a bit different than. But like Snowpiercer is that still. It's just like it is what you
Yeah,
say, which is like it does
Snowpiercer's
feel like that.
about how
Like
capitalism's on a train,
yeah,
and then Okja is about how capitalism is on a farm, and
yeah.
and Mickey
No,
17 is
Mickey
about how
17 is
capitalism
capitalism
is
in
in
space.
space. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's very
Um, I don't know where we should start with the actual movie. I feel like a big thing to talk about is Robert Pattinson because he is
well,
kind of like
this movie
perfect.
got delayed a bunch,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Like we did alluded to, and what I don't know if you guys have. I think of this movie as very obviously creatively compromised. Um,
Sure.
and because it like there were test screenings in 2023, and I don't know if you guys remember, but like there were reports of test screenings where people were saying like, oh, the movie is bad. Like I remember really specifically, like we have a friend that lives in LA that kind of like works around stuff like test screenings and stuff, and
Yeah.
he was like, yeah, I'm hearing that the movie's just straight up bad, like they don't know what to do with it, the movie's really bad. um and when you watch the movie, there's so much fucking voiceover in ADR,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
that it makes me think like, oh man, they added and like changed so much because of these negative test screenings. That I feel like you could really feel it. Specifically, there's a moment that is voiceover where it's early on in the movie where Robert Pattinson is getting dragged by a creeper, and he like wakes up, and then the voiceover is going like, huh, oh, whoa, what's going on? Wait, I'm not getting printed, I'm getting dragged by a bug. Wait, why aren't they gonna eat me? Take big
Yeah.
bites.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way this was in the original script.
Yeah.
Just like describing what's happening on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. Cause it's like, why didn't he just say it out loud?
Right.
I can see that. It definitely like because there's a lot of like explaining of like what we're looking at, and there's just a lot of like, and even interesting, like there's like a whole section where they're like, so there's these guys and they were multiples and they like the whole like backstory of like these like evil multiple guys who like, and there's just a lot
Yeah.
of like, there's a little bit of, I don't think it ever bothered me when I was viewing the film, but I think if like you were to think about it for more than like a little bit, it's like, and there is a lot of like helping out like with the audience there.
Yeah, sure.
I wonder what would be removed, like where, like in terms of like what the original cuts kind of were more interested in. So definitely, there's a lot of ways you could take this film. There's almost two films happening at one time. That kind of, it's like, which one do you go in? Like, which direction are you going in? Because I think there's like you have the two Robert Pattinsons, and then you have the kind of what's the fucking the Mark Ruffalo's like whole war against the creepers situation. And I think, yeah, I don't know. I there, it didn't bother me, but I can definitely see a world where there's a better version of this film that just like was lost in the edit, because
Yeah.
of Warner Brothers being the way that it is. And that's the downfall of the studio system. And oh, what the fuck happened? Oh, okay. What? Who's clicking stuff? Okay.
Okay, sorry, I
I
clicked
don't
something. I
yeah,
clicked
Doug
something on
clicked something and I
accident.
was like, how do we get it back?
It
Uh,
was not on purpose. It was an accident.
yeah, as I was saying, that's kind of the downfall of the studio system, and definitely, I mean, Warner Brothers has been for the past few years, or maybe the past 10 years, just been a really not a ideal place to work with. I mean, there have been successful movies that came out of that system, but like there's been some notable like just bad things that have happened in terms of like cuts of movies and certain things like that. So I think this is a solid. Like I'm not upset with the version that we have, but I can get on the train of like there's definitely a better version that definitely did exist before some
Yeah.
stuff happened. You know.
No, for sure. I what I was going to say was asking. I guess this is more, or Doug could maybe relate to this more because he's seen more of his movies, and I guess specifically those English language ones. But it's like Robert Pattinson, kind of the perfect person for these movies, like very much in the same vein as the characters in Snowpiercer and Okja, but obviously a more talented actor than even a lot of those people. Not all of those people, but
Yeah.
most of those people. So
Basically all of them, and
sure, I
in
mean,
the
like
other
Tilda
two
Swinton's
English
there
movie.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
although
Yeah,
like
but
Tilda
like,
Swinton, but
yeah,
like
but
yeah,
obviously
like
he's a better actor than fucking
like
Chris
Chris
Evans or
Evans,
whatever.
who's like the
Sure,
lead
yeah,
in
and Jake
Snowpiercer.
Gyllenhaal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Or even, you know, the
No, I
lead
mean,
in
I
Okja
want to
is like
talk
a little
about.
girl. Like, yeah, this is a crazy like lead
Sure.
actor.
I was referring to Jake Gyllenhaal and
Right. Yeah.
Okja,
Yeah.
but not yeah, not the child actor. No, but I wanted to talk about Robert Pattinson and also just the supporting cast, which I think has a lot of really good. I mean,
Mhm.
Naomi Aki's like awesome. Mark Ruffalo, I think, is kind of the probably like biggest one to talk about because I think it'll have the most of a response from anybody watching the movie. Like it's,
I think we're a pro Mark Ruffalo podcast. Is our
yeah,
official stance.
agreed. I think we had the same conversation with Poor Things, right?
Yeah.
When we were talking about Poor Things and like people
Yeah.
being on the fence about Ruffalo, and I think maybe when Poor Things came out, it was like people were almost like unsure of if Mark Ruffalo could play a character like that, and we were not of that opinion. But like now he's doing like a kind of weird guy again in this movie, and it's just like no, yeah, he's just good at that. Like actually, it's just like something he can
Yeah.
do.
There
Um,
definitely are people who still like think he's just awful.
yeah,
I mean, I've seen
I've seen
tweets
people talk about this movie
where they're
and say
like
that he's
he
awful.
is
Yeah,
unwatchable in this movie. I don't. I think he's good. I think he's really good in the film.
yeah,
Well, there's like a certain kind of person that like thinks that that before this movie even happened, that just they already thought that Mark Ruffalo was a terrible actor, and they also thought that what's her name?
oh,
Oh,
Tony
what's her
Collette.
name? Tony Collette. Thank you, Jesus Christ. They also thought that like Tony Collette was just a terrible actress, and then now like this movie's like their worst nightmare.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
so
Tony Collette's great in
Tony.
the movie too.
I've always been like, I don't really know how I feel about Tony Collette. I liked her in Jordan Number 2 recently, and then I was like, oh, I thought she was good in this film. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure, but I did think she was good in the film.
I've always
But
liked Tony Collette.
I want to talk about Rob, and I was thinking about this a lot. You know, when I watch these old like say a Jerry Lewis film or a Buster Keaton film, and I was like, we don't really have like I feel like we don't really like the comedian in terms of like a star. I feel like it's like not really like a thing that we have. And when I was talking, I made a video about Timothée Chalamet and what is it, Marty Supreme, and I was like, I really want him to do comedy stuff because I think he's really funny, and I think that would be such a great avenue for him to like get some like really like iconic like roles for his like filmography because I think if he like lends to the comedy, I think he would do really well. And I think Robert's a similar actor where I was like, I think him doing comedic stuff is like super like it's super up his alley, and I think he would really do well in this. I think it's so fun for him in here, and I think sometimes he might there's like I know like certain things he might do comedic stuff in like smaller. He might be a side role, but I think this is like such a kind of vehicle for him to just be really super funny and like kind of showcase that. And I would love for him to do. I think that's something that he likes to do. He likes doing weird
yeah,
stuff, of
for
course.
sure.
So like, I think that we need. I think we need to be creating roles for things like this for like people to like star vehicles where people can just be like weird and like funny rather than like star vehicles where they just like are like cool. You know, it's like I think this is a cool. I like that this is like happening, and I was really a blast to watch him. And I guess he kind of does both in this movie. He does like the super like almost like Batman-y kind of harsh like
There's
strong
Batman
guy.
moments for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's like kind of doing like you know Steve Buscemi, and it's
Right.
Steve
very.
Buscemi's so funny. I keep
Yeah,
seeing people say that.
he mentioned it
Yeah.
in an interview where he was
Okay.
like, I don't even know if it was like, because he was talking about Fargo and like the
Mm-hmm.
two different characters in
Right.
Fargo, and one of them is like Buscemi, and then there's another where it's like very tough, and he was like, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's one of the ones with the interviews with Bong Joon-ho, and he's talking about Fargo. Yeah, I don't know. It's super fun. I think he's so fun, and he's one of our great actors, and especially like that was always the kind of the sell in this movie was like one of our best actors working with Bong Joon Ho. Like it's a treat. So I think for that alone, like it's fun. It's worth seeing just because like of that pairing. But I do agree, Kevin. Like the entire um cast is really great. Like Naomi Aki, I'm totally
Yeah.
like on board with. Like I should think she should be in everything. Like, I
Yeah.
think
Well,
she's
because she has a
incredible.
lot of, like, upcoming stuff. I mean, she was obviously, like, in a lot of stuff this past year
Yeah.
or whatever, and then she also has, like, a lot of upcoming projects and, like, pretty big roles, so, like,
Mm.
I'm really curious to see
Yeah.
what
Well, it's like
the
I think
Naomi Ackie career looks like in a
well,
couple of years.
obviously she's not the lead of this film, but she's doing a lot where she's definitely in
Right.
like the front of the film, and like it's clear that she can definitely hold her
Yeah.
weight on like a big project. Like this is like a big deal, and this is like a lot of money tied to it, a lot of big name actors. And I think she holds her own against everybody in the film. Like it's really
Yeah.
impressive.
And
Like
I
when she's in a room with two Robert
Two Robert
Pattinsons,
Pattinsons.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mark
Yeah.
Ruffalo and Tony Collette, and she's like eating screen time. Like it's
Yeah.
really impressive.
Yeah,
No,
I
I
mean, she
think
has moments where she's like yelling at Tony Collette. She has moments where she's yelling at Stephen Young. Like, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. And, like, specifically, I think, like, their chemistry together and the fact that, like, a lot of what sets this I think the same thing is true for Doug maybe, just based on what I saw you say about the movie, but, like, a lot of what sets this apart from Snowpiercer and Okja for me, not that these movies don't have that, but, like, there's, like, a lot of, like, heart underlying, like, the narrative where it's, like, there's, like, the romance is actually, like, quite nice
Mhm.
and,
Yeah.
like, really, like, got me emotional a couple times and like, in a way that I really wasn't expecting from watching the trailer over and over. That's not something that they really emphasize in the trailer is, like, this relationship between them. Um, but it's quite
Yeah.
moving in the movie, and I think obviously a huge part of that is Naomi Aki being able to work opposite Robert Pattinson.
Mhm.
Yeah, the movie is like so. I'm tearing up. The movie is like so romantic. It is so like it's like so romantic
Yeah,
because the movie, right? It's about this guy who is like a loser, right? But like not only is he a loser, he's a loser that like super hates himself. Where
yeah,
his job is like he just like is a loser that dies. That's like his whole thing. He there's
yeah,
like no special skills or anything. His whole job is literally to just like die every day. It's to get tortured and die. And it's like it's fucked up. And there's like this tremendous amount of self-loathing in this character. But then he has this line where he's just like, yeah, it's like it's fine because it's like I'm just I'm in love with I forgot her Naomi Aki's
Nasha.
character's name.
Nasha.
Nasha. Yeah, it's like, but it's like it's fine because like Nasha's making it all worth it. It's like my life sucks or whatever, but like he still gets to like have his girlfriend, and his girlfriend loves him, and he's like he has that line where he's like, I don't know what she sees in me, but it's awesome,
Yeah,
and it's like it's so romantic. And there's this shot where he I don't think it's a spoiler to say this, right? Where he's getting, like he's dying, like he's literally dying, and Nasha is like in there holding him
Oh
while
yeah, he's like
everybody else is
getting
like,
gas in the tank.
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
and she's in there holding him while everybody else like doesn't care because he's like, yeah, whatever, he just dies, it's this thing, it's
Mhm.
like who cares? And
yeah,
he's like getting like super tortured, and she's like there comforting him, and it's like that's so powerful to me, and it's like
yeah.
that's so romantic, it's incredible. I don't know, that's one of the things that really I find affecting about this movie. Yeah.
Right. No, I agree. And also that shot's I think important, and also just an important idea in the movie is that, like, she's like really the only person who treats him like a human in the whole movie.
Yeah,
So it's like
even including himself, he
it goes
doesn't even treat himself like
yeah,
a human.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it goes like beyond romance even because I thought one of the interesting ideas is like once we get to the part where there are like two clones of him or whatever, it's like the conversation that he has where he's essentially just like, I've never minded dying before, but like the thought of there being a Mickey 18 at the same time that there is a Mickey 17 bothers him because now it's not just like a continuing thing. It's all like there's like a, you know, there's he like exists differently than he ever had before,
Yeah,
because it isn't just like the
I
repeating
really
cycle.
liked that spin on the way that like he goes from being kind of immortal and then immediately now it's like, oh, I like this is like if
Yeah,
I die it's like for real. Like the way that like it's like,
yeah,
oh, you introduce the fact that like he can never die and then immediately like now it's like, oh no, wait. Like it's like like this is going to like be like him dying
yeah,
is actually bad. And then like
Yeah,
now
and it
you're
always
automatically
was
worried
bad.
about him. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
always was bad, but it took him seeing like another version of himself and being like, "Wait, what the fuck?"
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, and it's like for him to even realize it.
Um
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I think also I was thinking about this. I think also it's interesting how um everybody asks him like, "What's it like to die?" and he never answers. I really
mhm.
like that motif a lot because for a number of reasons, but one of them is in the movie he doesn't remember dying most of the time, you know?
yeah,
Because
Mhm.
like they have the memory backup thing. So most of the time except for the couple of times where like they have him hooked up in the lab and they're fucking gassing him or whatever and they're like but like most of the time when he's like out and about it's like he wakes up and they have to explain to him what happened, you know, because there's a
yeah,
gap in his memory. And that also like the idea of that is scary, like waking up and being like, okay, you just died, here's what happened, you got eaten by a bug.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay. um,
yeah,
I don't know. And also like this idea of people like asking like, hey, what's it like to die is interesting to me because like it shows how kind of dumb people are. You know what I mean?
hmm,
Where it's like, what do you mean what it's like to die? It's like, yeah, you die and it's crazy. And then people are like, but it's fine for you because you're gonna wake up anyway. And it's like you think for 2 seconds and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. You know, you're being so you're being
Yeah.
you're exhibiting such low empathy right now.
yeah,
Which is everybody in the movie,
sure,
except for
yeah,
Nasha.
yeah.
But
This is true. Um, I wanted to ask you guys about the little. I mean, we talked about them before, but the creepers, the little
Mhm.
creatures. I guess not all of them are little. Some of them are pretty big, uh, but I really like those guys. What I was gonna say before when Owen brought it up was that like, and the same thing with the Ocho one is that like there's just a very specific like design that Bong Joon Ho has when it comes to this stuff. Like creatures and like monsters in his movies always kind of have this like like perfect like ovally shaped
soft,
like
yeah.
yeah, it's like which is cool. It's interesting because one of the things is that like his next movie is supposed to be an animated movie about like sea creatures, I think, or something. So I'm curious if like when he animates them they're gonna also like kind of look similar to the stuff that we've seen so far in his movies, which I think would be cute. But that's like you know, different conversation. Anyway, the creepers, freaking adorable little guys. I really liked those guys.
They
I
think they look so disgusting. They look so
really,
gross.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought they were so
Oh, they're
cute.
so cute.
Oh, I think they're like so like cartoonishly gross. The first time I watched the movie, I was freaking out when they were carrying him because of how disgusting they were. They're like giant. They're like okay, they're like massive cockroaches, but with like eyeballs and tentacles. And I'm like, that
Yeah,
is
you keep
fucking
calling them
crazy.
bugs, and I'm like, they're not bugs.
They're just
I
little
know
guys.
they're guys. I know they're little
Yeah.
guys with thoughts and feelings, but it's like they're so
Yeah.
gross.
Well, bugs also.
Um,
But,
Yeah, they have
um,
thoughts and feelings.
yeah, but
I don't know if bugs have thoughts.
okay, but they have feelings.
How do
They
they
can
know to
feel.
walk around?
Yeah, they definitely have some thoughts.
Robots don't walk around.
What?
Anyway,
The
the
robot and
point.
the bug is not the same.
I think I
No,
think
you're
the
right. They're not
thing
the
I
same.
think the thing that's interesting about it that I've noticed is kind of like the common thread is that, and I guess you're saying it with like the tentacles and stuff, but like every time he does these things, it's like always a mix between like the weird like ovally kind of like thing that he's doing, and then like they always incorporate aspects of some real thing. Like the creature in Okja is like, you know, just like
It's like a bunny and a bird, or like and a pig,
yeah,
rather.
it's like a pig,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like so there's like all these elements of like real life that I think are interesting that he
Mhm.
incorporates, because it's like, because the thing about him is that like none of these, like especially the English language movies he's making, are like subtle at all, you know, like where we mentioned the Mark Ruffalo character already, and like no need to really get into what I mean, you literally can't misinterpret that character. So like,
I do
I
think it's
guess
interesting though.
no, I do. And we
Yeah.
could talk about it, but my point was just that like, he's not like I think what's fun about his movies is that like he isn't subtle about this stuff, and so it's kind of interesting that his like character designs are always this blend between like real life and like the like sci-fi world he's created, because it is like he like wants you to think about real life, and it's like it's not like
Yeah.
you don't have to like do all this like extra work in your head to be like, what is this movie about? It's like you kind of just watch it and you're like, oh yeah, I get it. And like anybody watching it could feel that way, which I think is I think it's Doug said it's like it is kind of like, especially his English language movies are kind of just like like your comfort liberal, but like but it is kind of cool that there's just like at least now a mainstream filmmaker who is just like talking about these things like pretty openly, like no need to like and like in a way that's like palatable and fun to watch. I don't know if that's been everybody's experience with Mickey 17. I think it's like a little bit more mixed, I guess. But
Yeah, some people don't like the movie, but I think also, there's the movie, there's a moment in the movie that's so awesome where Mickey 18 is just like, we got to kill this guy. And Mickey 17 is like,
Yeah.
oh my god, this guy all, and then Mickey 17 just grabs the gun and is like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
go
he's
do
just-
it right now. And it's like, whoa, okay.
yeah, it's awesome. That's what I mean. I'm like, there's no, I don't know. I think it's really fun that like somebody's just making movie like Bong Joon Ho is just like kind of the perfect guy to be making movies like that, where like, um, where it is like kind of able to be consumed by a wide audience. Whether or not this movie is going to succeed is
It's
a
not
different
doing
topic,
super
'cause
well
it's
at the
not
box
doing great.
office.
But yeah, did you want to talk about the Mark Ruffalo character, Doug?
Yeah, so
the
okay,
real world parallels.
Yeah, so there's a lot of context that is
Yeah.
required, I guess, to understand this. So if you don't live in America, right? There's a politician named Donald Trump.
Yeah,
who-
yeah.
There's also a
who-
movie that came out about him
Yeah,
just this year.
Yeah, starring Sebastian Stan, called The Apprentice. So yeah, this politician, he was just elected president for his second term, right? After losing the previous election. But this election took place in 2024. Okay,
Mhm.
and that's important.
It's
This
really funny that
movie-
you're explaining Donald Trump to people.
This movie wrapped up shooting. So they wrote and shot this movie and they finished doing all of that in 2023.
Right.
And then in 2023 is when the fucking test screening shenanigans happened and they re-edited the movie and then pushed back its release date and stuff. So this movie was supposed to come out before the election. That was the idea. That was the understanding. And then that didn't happen because of studio stuff.
Mhm.
The movie kind of also God, they're so actually
Now
that's
explain
so
Elon
interesting.
Musk to them as well.
No, that's what I was gonna get at because it's so interesting. Like the fact that this movie, all this happened before 2024 is so interesting because I think that Mark Ruffalo's character is like a mix of
Yeah.
Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and I think kind of unintentionally in some ways. Maybe it was on purpose though. If it was on purpose, then
Sure.
genius foresight, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because Elon Musk, who's currently the second most significant figure in American politics, somehow incredible
Yeah.
timeline we're living in. Yeah, but this movie took place before was supposed to come out before the election, and the movie kind of positions Donald Trump as a failed politician. They say that as a former congressman, two-time election loser, right? And it's like interesting what we're setting
Yeah.
up here. And that did not happen in real life. It's a very
Right.
optimistic view.
Yeah. The opposite
But,
literally happened. Two-time election winner.
Yes. If he lost this time though, but he was a one-time
Well, he was a
loser, if he
one-time
lost
loser.
again.
Well, it's
Yeah,
almost like
exactly.
if Donald Trump lost second time, he would take over space.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
like cause evil in space. He would never go away. That's kind of like what this is like. Donald Trump, even if he lost, he would never go away, and we would have to kill him either way. That is what the movie is kind of saying.
Yeah.
But then the ending is like, oh, but then they do, and it's fine.
Right.
But it's so
Yeah,
I
the
think
ending I
that
want to talk about as well, but I feel like we
it's
should go to
optimistic. It has a
later.
really
Yeah.
really happy ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is
Um,
also, it's kind of like, I mean, you could talk about like AI, where it's almost like we just have to destroy that shit. Like we can't use it. Like it's like certain technology. It's like we just gotta destroy it, and not like that shit can't be allowed because that shit's like bad for like it's like unethical. And there's like the end of the movie, they kind of just explode the machine that like duplicate, not what's it called, the reprints.
the
The
reprinter.
Yeah, they're like, this is not ethical, and it wasn't like it was decided, oh, it's not ethical, but we can do it in space. It was like, oh, it's not ethical on Earth, but like whatever they do in space doesn't really fucking matter because it's in space. So that was kind of interesting, where they kind of talk about like the politics of Earth, and then like they're like, oh, but it's space, it's and I mean it's interesting because there's like all this is happening. We get some Earth stuff, but like most of the movie is in space, and so it's
Yeah.
like this whole kind of world, and like the way people are treated, and even like the kind of politics of space separate from Earth, and like there's a difference of like what's allowed and what's like thought of as like normal or like ethical in space.
And I like a lot how I really enjoy how the Mark Ruffalo character Marshall is stupid, but he's not. But
Yeah.
he's not. But here's my thing, because it's a satire, and I said the second I saw Mickey 17, I was like, this is a good satire, but this is a satire that people are gonna think is a bad satire and are gonna really like be resistant to, even like leftists and stuff, because it's like Mark Ruffalo is very stupid in the movie, right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna be honest, dude. I think it's like that in real life. Listen. I've been following this administration really closely. I'm not like
Said I
because
think
Mark.
hot take. I think Donald Trump's not the smartest guy.
No, because it's one of those things where it's like Marshall, like he's dumb, but he's not like a blubbering idiot, right? He's like a successful guy that like has like that a big ego and like such a huge hubris, and
Yeah.
like is pretty good at manipulating people, right? But the actual like the policy ideas, it's like he's not thinking. He's not thinking about
Well,
it,
he
and
also
he's
has
just
like his wife in his ear, like telling him
yes.
what
Yeah.
to do most of the time. Like he does like little like side chats, like even when they're like in public, he'll just like turn to her and she'll like whisper to him like what to do.
Well, like towards the end of the movie, when Marshall's like, "We have to kill all of the creepers. We have to kill all of the bugs," and then one of
Yeah.
the scientists is like, "Actually, I think that you should talk to it because like it's like they're intelligent and they're capable of having
Yeah.
conversation." And the Marshall's like, "Do you think I'm a fucking idiot?" And then it cuts to like literally that's like what he says, and then it cuts to like 2 minutes later where Mickey 17 is talking to the bug, and Marshall's like, "How is he talking to the bug? What the fuck? Why am I not out there talking to the bug?" And it's like, yeah, dude, like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I
um.
think that stuff is really funny. Especially the stuff towards the end with the scientist. I thought was interesting because it also brings it. But I know people we were talking about the Okja comparisons, and it kind of brings back the environmentalism conversation that is such a big part of Okja, obviously, and like preserving the. But also it's like interesting because it's in space on a different planet that is inhabited by its own race that is not humans. So that adds a layer of
Yeah.
like beyond just like
Well,
environmentalism, but
there's
also
I forget the exact line, though you might remember it, 'cause you saw it what 3 times. But there's a line where they're like oh, like basically like, we're the aliens here.
Yeah.
Like we're not, like they're not the aliens. Like we are invading their fucking place, and like
Yeah.
we are
Yeah, it's Naomi Aki's like, "We're the aliens, dumbass." It's like, yeah,
yeah. Which is like I thought that was really, because they're such like a, these fucking, we come to this place, and then, or like Mark Ruffalo, they come to this place, and then they're like, these guys are fucking stupid little bugs, and like we are of course, like we deserve this place. And I know all like there's like the Tony Collette's character is like cutting their tails off for like
Yeah.
sauce and stuff like
I
that.
hated that. I hated
yeah.
that.
Well, like
That made
gross
me
sauce
sad.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, like it's like anything
Her
can
obsession
be
with sauce is
sauce.
interesting. Yeah,
Anything can be sauce. It's very bizarre. I wonder.
Yeah.
The sauce angle. Just
Well, I guess I there's also like, I mean, there's a focus on like eating in the film, and like
Yeah.
Bong Joon-ho talked about it a little bit, but just like kind of like everyone eats, and like you have to eat to live, and like you live to eat, sort of
Yeah.
thing.
That's a big part of Snowpiercer as well, where it's
Yeah,
like
which I really
the
liked, but then I'm interested because you have like that, and like Mickey 17's like eating like fucking slop, like actual slop, and then like
yeah.
they go to the dinner thing, and they're like he's eating this like weird meat, and then like they're trying like
Yeah.
experimental shit, like they like invite him to this dinner, and then they feed him like experimental food, and he starts like dying because of it.
Yeah.
It's really, and then they're like the sauce stuff is interesting. Um, I don't know. I don't even know exactly how it all comes together there, but there's a lot of like stuff with food and stuff like that.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess like you don't I this is really like spitballing. I haven't really thought about it super deeply, but like
Yeah.
with the sauce, like the thing about sauce, right, is that they have the separation where everybody on the ship they eat as like a means of survival. Like you have to eat, and like they're counting your
Yeah.
calories and like your micro and like your nutrients and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like that is the only purpose for the food, right? Is
Mhm.
for nutrition. But then like sauce doesn't have any nutrition, right?
Sure.
And sauce is like purely a
Luxury.
like yeah, a luxury, that's the word. Yeah, a luxury. Like there's no, and that's why
Mhm.
Yeah.
she's like, oh, like sauces are what's like really important and significant.
Yeah.
um
Well, she
and
even
that's
like says it when he eats the meat, where she's like he eats it just like on its own. She's like, you had to have eaten it with the sauce. Like that's like what, like you should
Yeah.
eat it with
Yeah.
some sauce instead.
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, just
and
funny.
and
Yeah.
even like because he's eating like this like big like like it's like it's so it looks fucking disgusting. It's like jello-y like
Yeah.
fake
It's
meat.
bizarre.
It looks like a raw fish or something.
Yeah.
And
He's
but
like
like what they're
shoving
eating
his
is like
face with it.
a tiny piece of steak with with like where sauces like different kinds of sauces are filling up the other part of the plate.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, for sure. I mean, the food stuff just ties into all the, like the other thing that like Bong Joon-ho talked about a lot is just that it is like the kind of repeated cycle of like working under capitalism, and like they're, I mean, they're literally like in prison pretty much. They're in
Yeah.
space
Yeah.
prison, like they're just like they're just like prisoners who get like this amount of food, and then it's just like work 14 hours a day, and then and in Mickey's case it's just like die, wake up, do the same thing over and over again, endlessly for the rest of your life. So yeah, the food definitely plays a role in that. I don't know if there's anything else you guys we didn't talk about, or specific scenes maybe, or anything else that you guys want to mention before we move on to the second movie. Okay.
Um, no, I think that the movie's really good. That's my take. I
Yeah,
think Mickey
I agree. Oh,
17
I should
is
ask Doug,
really
I guess,
good.
where it because Owen's obviously only seen one, but I don't know, where does this like kind of stack up for you?
I haven't seen The Host or Mother or
Sure,
Barking Dogs Never Bite.
sure,
So,
but
but other than that, I listen, here's the thing, right? Tough for me to just off rip be like, yeah, this is better than Parasite or Memories of Murder, which are
okay,
two
let's
like
chill.
no. Which like those are two like really like canonized like significant movies in like the contemporary history of the medium, right? Like both like really important movies. Both movies featured on like the fucking Sight and Sound top 250 list.
Yeah,
Um, but I will say, so I'm not saying it's better than those, but I will say like in terms of his three English films, this one I think is like heads and tails better than. Um, and I think that this is just
oh, expression.
um
It's not Head and
uh
Shoulders above.
and I think that this and I think that
Letterman meant new
I
thing is live.
I am really like I cannot stress how emotionally invested I am in the movie, and how affected I am by the themes of the film and like the content of
Yeah,
the film. In ways where it's like I do really I watch the movie and I'm like, man, this is kind of like a mess in some ways, which we didn't even talk
sure.
about because I don't think it like really matters because again, I'm not a film critic. I don't think any of us are film critics, right? But I watch
Right.
this movie and it's like I am so emotionally affected by it where I'm like, yeah, this is incredible. Like this is an
Yeah,
incredible piece.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at
no,
with Mickey 17. Yeah. Yeah.
that
Whereas
makes
with like
sense.
Parasite, where I'm like, this is an incredibly well executed movie.
Sure. Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, yeah, it's Parasite. I feel like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
yeah. It's one of the few movies that you can say that about. It's like, I mean, for all of time, it was always just like when people bring something up, you're just like, yeah, it's The Godfather, you know? Like, and
yeah, 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 yeah.
that's just like where the conversation ends. Someone's like, oh, I really like The Godfather, and you're just like, yeah, it's The Godfather. But Parasite's like one of those few movies where you could just be like, yeah, it's Parasite.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we're all kind of on the same wavelength. Uh anyway, we can talk about In the Lost Lands, which I have very few notes about. I kind of figured you two would take this one
Oh
away.
yeah.
So, knock yourselves
All
out.
right.
Let's hear it.
So yeah, In the Lost Lands is the new Paul W.S. Anderson film. It did an adaptation of a short story that George R.R. Martin wrote, and I was interested to, or it was interesting that I found out that Mila Jovovich, the lead actress and also the wife of director Paul W.S. Anderson, was really the like leading force on adapting this piece. She really likes George R.R. Martin and is like super nerdy about all that stuff. So I think there was like one of the producers, like had a bunch of his short stories as options to adapt, and she was like, "We got to do this one. I really want to do this one." And she was like, "I want to play this witch character," and so she was like really driving. It was very much a passion project for Mila Jovovich to make this film, which I think is interesting. I don't know if I feel like that's not something everyone would immediately think that would be the case, but yeah, there is it's super. I think a lot of people are comparing it to Rebel Moon, and I think it's
I think that's fair.
for me to kind of talk about like what I think there's some differences that I really like about this film. I think Rebel Moon is so big. There's so much like there's a lot, and there's two movies and they're really long and there's multiple cuts and whatever. And what I kind of like about this movie is you're kind of just thrown into this world. And it's not really like we're not really trying to like world build and explain like every possible thing about this world. It's like these are the characters that we're doing this. This is like the quest we're going on, and we're just laying it out. And there's like a lot of good things going on, but a lot of stuff is like not really important. It's like this is it's more about this journey that we're going on, this little quest, rather than like building an entire universe. Which I think that is like a clear difference in the Rebel Moon, and I really like the Rebel Moon director's cut. But I think something I like more about this film is the kind of there. It's though that it's a massive world and this higher like CG Unreal Engine world, this crazy thing. It's really about this like one little story, this one little like journey that we're going on with Mila Jovovich's character and Dave Bautista. Dave Bautista is in this movie.
Dave Bautista with just all of his real tattoos just out there on his
Well, that's what I
character.
was like. I was looking at like there's like this neck
The Blade
tattoo.
Runner tattoo.
You're almost like that's it. That's just like his real tattoo. That's gonna be just his real
Yeah,
tattoo. And then I
yeah.
was like, I was watching an interview with him, and it's like, oh yeah, that's just like those are just Dave Bautista's tattoos. Really awesome stuff. This movie has like every thing in it. In terms of like we got witches, werewolves, like the church. There's like the church coming after them. There's queen. There's so much stuff, but it's very much I don't know. I like the kind of like it feels very I don't even know the word we'd be like you kind of like it's like using these archetypes of these things to its advantage, and it
Right.
really explore it's like it's very there's no I kind of maybe in my video I was talking about like there's like no shame in its game in the way that it's like this is the type of movie I want to be, and I'm being that like 100%, like it's going. And I think a lot of people aren't gonna maybe jive with that, but it's like it knows what it wants to be for sure. And it's like this is like I want to do this, and I'd be interested like what the actual short story is like, because there's a lot of like
Yeah, the
influences
movie made me want to
in
read the short story. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean I'm sure it's not it's a short story, so I'm sure it's not it's probably an easy read, and it's probably not too long. So but it's yeah, I think there's a lot of really cool experimental stuff going on, and I think in terms of like
Yeah.
when we introduced Mila Jovovich's character and she's like hanging, and they introduce her like powers through like the way that they're like using editing. I think there's really crazy editing, but the way like I think we've gotten so used to like power sets in these like superhero movies or fantasy movies that are like just kind of displayed in like the most generic way. And I think the way that like they use editing to kind of like almost confuse the viewer as like the guy was confused and like all of a sudden like he's hanging and like the way that they kind of manipulate the image to showcase this power, like this kind of like magical power, and almost using like cinema as like the magic itself was really really fascinating. I thought there was a lot of like really interesting ideas with the way that they incorporated the kind of like otherworldly kind of confusing nature of magic itself, that I thought was really really interesting. Um, and there's like some really interesting like there's the scene I think that maybe even in the trailer, but when you first see Dave Batista and like the quickness of the way that he like gets his guns out is like so fast that you don't even like really fucking see it. And there's a lot of crazy like action stuff going on and it's all kind of with that the way that it's edited and like the interesting kind of editing choices that they go with here. Um, and then of course like there's like the super they I don't know exactly I remember when they were talking about like the film a long time ago. It was like, yeah, we made every environment in Unreal Engine first,
Yeah.
and then we were gonna shoot it. So like there's so much of like they were kind of like there was almost this technology that they're like had to kind of work around and try to figure out how to do it before, because they don't the film they wanted to make, they really didn't want to. I mean, you can't shoot this on this film. Can't kind of like can't shoot on location, right? So it's like you're building this kind of crazy world here, and all there's really the kind of way that they use the camera on some of these like in this world is really interesting. But overall, like I think the heart of it is really just this little quest that we're going on with Mila Jovovich and Dave Batista. And I like there's like this really simple, like we have a structure that we're following, right? So we're like we got to go to this place, and we got to go to this place, and we got to end up at this place, and we got to find this werewolf guy, and then also it's like we got to do it by the moon. The moon has to be like a full moon. We have to get there before the full moon. So we're following this like little like Lord of the Rings, or it's very like it's like you have like a fantasy book, and then you like go to like the
I'm
first
gonna
page
be
or last
honest,
page where like
it's
the map.
very Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Very like well, that's the truth.
That's
But
what I was
that's
thinking
it's
while I
very
was watching
fantasy,
it. Yeah.
very. But also to me, I was like, oh, it's like very just it works in like kind of the video gamey aesthetic and realm of it, where it's like, okay, this is where we're gonna go, and this way go there. Um, I love that, but also like the moon. There's like one of these. I forget what the exact shot is, but we like there's really interesting like transitions sometimes where we go from where we are and then to that like moon dial thing. There was one specifically that I really enjoyed, but I forget exactly what it was. But I was like, oh, that was crazy. That was pretty crazy. But I love that kind of structure that like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is the path, and then it like we have these kind of twists and turns of the way like certain things, our characters kind of are knowing things that we aren't totally aware of. And so it's like, okay, this is pretty simple. We're following this, and then we're getting kind of um, twisted and turned around with it. And then there's just like really awesome, just like action stuff thrown throughout that journey that we're going on, because they're getting chased down. It's super. I mean, very uh, reminds me a lot of like the Resident Evil stuff
Yeah.
that he does. But then I mean, that end sequence with like the werewolf battle, and it's raining, and it's like super blue.
That was
It's
cool. That was
really
fucking
fucking. It's
awesome.
so cool. There's just I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so much. I want to see it again because there's like so many like editing decisions and like stuff like that I was like I need to like see it again because you're following the kind of narrative of it, and I'd like to. I mean, this would be a great film to kind of have at home and be able to like pause it and kind of break some stuff down because there's so much going on in
Hmm.
terms of like the visual language and the edit that I was just overall really impressed. And I've always been like, I think Paul W. Sanderson's always kind of been experimenting with really interesting stuff. Um, And I think that's what it's like. I think it's so cool that like a director like this exists, where it's like these are the kind of movies I want to make, but it's less of like I'm just making them to make it. It's like I'm always trying to experiment and try to find new ways to do it. But it's like I'm still gonna make these like fantasy adventure movies, like video game adaptations, and it's like this is exactly what he wants to do, and he's making all these movies with his wife, and he's just like it's like it seems like the most fun,
No,
kind of thing
yeah.
ever. It's like this is the life, man. He's got exactly he's got
He's
the life right
interesting.
there.
He's interesting where he does have like this very specific very specific taste and style,
Yeah.
right? For like how he's interested in making films, right? And on top of that, he has like a muse, and his muse, like in all of his movies,
Mhm.
that is like one of the most like beautiful movie
Yeah.
stars in the world. It's like it's so cool. It's so cool that like
That
this
just
guy just
rocks.
exists,
Yeah,
like
exactly. It's like I think, and it's interesting. Like there's a lot of like just bad action films. Like you see like a superhero movie that's just like
yeah,
totally
people would
poorly.
describe these as those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I would say like that new Captain America movie, right? And it's like talking about like
Right.
poorly constructed and kind of like studio hell of that movie, but like that movie is people are gonna like there's people that are like gonna like that movie just because it has Captain America in it. But I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here that's just going to be dismissed. I was talking before the thing. I looked it up on because I posted some video on TikTok, and I was like, I looked up in the Lost Land reviews on TikTok, and I saw these guys being like, that was the most unwatchable movie ever. I think it's something that like not. I understand why it's not for everyone, but I think there's so many things to be interested about. Like there's so many decisions and things that are being played with here that I think if I just don't understand how like it'd be not interesting to at least kind of think about some of these stuff. Like I think it'd be
No, yeah, like the
unwise to
cinephile.
write it off as like a nothing movie when there's like real like artistry in terms of the experimentation that's going on here.
The cinephile like movie fan perspective on something like In the Lost Lands is so like very like, oh man, the dialogue and acting is stilted, and everything looks so garish and fake. So, and it's like, yeah, you know what, those both of those things are true. That doesn't make the movie like kind of irredeemable or anything. It's like it's interesting. I like even like
Yeah.
the acting, where it's like the acting is like super stilted sometimes, and it's
Mhm.
like I think it's kind of interesting and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially I don't
Oh,
forget the character, but there's like the like lead of like the church people with her like she's like these sunglasses on, and she's like
Yeah.
super like video game like boss like coming to get you. But like I think it does like for me, it's like oh this makes sense. Like she's totally like this like kind of, and I like the kind of there's almost this endless wave of the church like army where it's like super like video game where like if you there's a moment where like we gotta go because if we just fighting these guys, we're gonna fight these guys forever because it's like kind of this endless wave of. But yeah, I don't know. There was definitely I I don't know. I think it's interesting, and it's interesting to think about when people watch a movie, like they what triggers them to be like, oh, this is bad, and like what they can like kind of let by in other like situations, and like what are people
I
looking for, I guess, in
can
movies.
speak, I think, to the perspective of that viewer maybe a
Mhm.
little bit better than you two would, and also just as somebody who likes the movie less than you two. Um, but I think, and this is, I think all of the stuff that Doug said is definitely probably also accurate. I'm sure most people are watching the movie and they're like, the acting sucks and the dialogue is
Mhm.
bad. Not entirely my experience. The acting maybe so, um but the dialogue never really actually bothered me. In fact, there are like multiple lines in the movie where I was like, oh, I really like that actually. Like there are multiple conversations where I was like, oh, this is like pretty well written actually.
Mhm.
um Obviously that's probably more specific to me than it is the average viewer, but I think really what messes with people in
Yeah.
a movie like this, that I think is similar to a movie that I liked more that we talked about on the podcast that is equally divisive, Megalopolis, is like the rhythm of movies like that is not what people are used to, and that like really confuses somebody. And in Megalopolis it didn't bother me as much. I think in this movie it did, because uh Doug said it's kind of like Game of Thrones, for example, and like,
Mhm.
and it is, it felt like I was watching Game of Thrones, but like the problem is when you do that in a movie, for a lot of people, I think you're gonna like clock out because it feels so much more dramatic. Whereas like if I'm watching Game of Thrones, right, like because you mentioned like the map, and they have like they go from like one location to the next, and these are like
Mhm.
very like specific, that like it's not like the rhythm of a normal movie where like one scene to the next, it's like you're going between things. It almost feels like
Yeah.
episodic in how it's like displayed. And so
Time moves very fast in the movie.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So like if I'm watching Game of Thrones as like a person who's like a normal moviegoer, like you watch Game of Thrones at home and you're like, okay, this is what happened in this episode.
Mhm.
Let's start the next episode. And then like you go to the movie theater, and when you watch a movie where it feels like you're going from episode to episode, but it's in a movie, that's gonna like feel strange, like that's not what you think movies are. And so
Mhm.
I think that's like a hard hurdle to get over, is like you're watching a movie that is not it's like more in rhythm with TV than it is with a movie. And so like that's confusing to people because it's I think the common factor that we've talked about on the podcast before, that we brought up with Megalopolis, is just that like people expect movies to be one thing. Like
Yeah.
people expect
Mhm.
movies to all feel like one thing.
Yeah.
And so when you watch a movie like this that very clearly feels like, from my perspective, a Game of Thrones, but condensed to 2 hours, like that's gonna bother a lot of people, I think. So I think that's like the
Yeah.
biggest thing, more so than
Yeah.
even the dialogue or the action or whatever, because there's like if you've ever talked to anybody who's like above the age of 30 and likes action movies, like I see the action movies my dad watches, and I'm like, he doesn't
Mhm.
know the difference between good and bad you know what I mean? He would watch
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
movie and see like Dave Batista shoot people, and he'd be like, yeah, that's cool as hell. Like, so I don't think that's like the biggest thing. I think
Sure.
it really
Okay.
just is the rhythm of a movie like this.
Yeah. And I think I would just even further. It's just like I think there's just I do think there's just like a thing that people come to expect in terms of like what a movie should and shouldn't be. Um,
Yes.
and I think that robs a lot of people of some really interesting kind of thought experiments or just concept just like think about a movie for a little bit longer and try to engage with a little. But I don't know. I'd be interested because I know you guys haven't seen a lot of his work, and I'd be interested to what you guys
True.
thought about some of his other work because um like this is a newer. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it into his entire like kind of filmography, but um, I was like, some people were asking like Tyler Whitmore was like, is this a good movie to like start with him? I hadn't seen it yet, but I would say it is because it's tough with like Resident Evil stuff where it's like there's a whole franchise. And it's like it's tough to expect like, oh, you want to get into this guy, a director, watch this entire franchise where he directs like 80% of them. Where it's like I think this is a good entryway to his work because it is this kind of small condensed little story
Yeah.
where it kind of gives you the vibe of some of what he's going. I would say Pompeii. I think it's a good.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
People
I was
keep
gonna
talking
ask
about
about
Pompeii
that.
on online, bro.
it's
People keep
really
talking
good.
about that
Well,
movie.
it's like, hey, what if Gladiator was happening, but then the whole fucking place just gets smoked out, and it's very. I mean, it's not the exact same for Gladiator, but it's like similar kind of. There are
Right.
gladiators in it, and there was like fighting in the kind of arena there. But that one's like Kid Harington, great. Like it's like that one's really good. I really like that one a lot. The Three Musketeers is pretty fun. It's like super. It's like steampunky, little like adventure movie. It's really silly. He does like there's almost like this like quality to his films and the type of movies that he makes. I mean, obviously the video game stuff is different, but there is kind of this old Hollywood kind of nature to like the way that the films kind of flow. I feel like in terms of like
Yeah.
it's like old school, very old school like serial like adventure stuff. That's like super fun, and it's very like it's like again like we kind of talked about like this is kind of like that's what he likes, and that's like his very. But I feel like a lot of times when we get these people like I don't even know who would be a good example, but I feel like a lot of times when you maybe like James Gunn or somebody like that. Where it's like there are guys who like really specifically like one kind of like thing. Like it's like they were a kid and they like really liked fucking superheroes, and then they grew up and like I want to make superhero movies. They
Yeah.
like a lot of times like they don't have a lot of like interesting like thoughts about like cinema. It's like I like superhero movies. Like I don't really not care about like, but like with I think what makes Paul W. Sanderson interesting is like he's trying to experiment in the way that he's making the movie and trying to like always trying to make a different kind of like how do I do this in a different way. Where
Yeah.
it's like really like this like really nerdy thing. I like want to make movies about superhero movies and not superhero video game movies and like fantasy stuff and like whatever. I'm gonna make these silly like
Well,
adventure movies, but also like I want to also experiment with this tech and you have these really interesting editing styles and make my image like the way that the images look are really like nothing else this year is gonna look like that.
yeah.
Right.
I guess I'm most curious about because you asked about watching more, and I want to watch more, but I think what I'd be most curious about is like those other movies. I assume don't have the same setback that I just described with this one for me, where it's like it's not an adaptation of a short story like stretched out,
Mhm.
so like narratively, it's not going to feel the same. I imagine watching a different movie of his.
Yeah, I mean it
Yeah,
depends. I think I would recommend Pompeii. I definitely
yeah,
for you, Kevin. The Resident Evil movies have like an interesting structure to them. They're different for sure. The later ones are really cool. Um, they're like kind of matrixy in like a way because it's super tech. It's super tech. There's a
Yeah.
lot of interesting stuff. But I don't know. I don't know if like it's kind of like a hard to sell because it's like a super specific it's like super specific food that like it's like you either like are gonna vibe with it or you're not gonna vibe with it. But the people that do like he has very dedicated like ride or die fans. And I think I don't know kind of the overall summary that we kind of talk about is like this is just really cool that like someone like this exists and I guess they make like and the fact that Dave Bautista is like in this is like really cool because Dave Bautista is really great and it was kind of like I know a lot of people like are looking at this as like a negative for his career like what the fuck Dave Bautista you said you were better than The Rock and you were doing all these like prestige movies and now you're but Dave Bautista is in some hot garbage I think that's like fair
yeah.
to say like there's some bad movies that Dave Bautista has signed on to and I don't. This is not anywhere near like the worst thing that Dave Bautista has been in. And I think that it's cool that he's in this because it's yeah. I don't know. And Mila Jovovich is awesome as well, of course. Um,
Yeah. No, Dave Bautista is definitely fair share of
no, yeah,
slop.
he's in some
Um,
stinkers, but I
I
don't
I
think
mean,
this
think
is
it's
like
cool. I think he's cool in this movie. Literally, while watching the movie, before I realized it was just his normal tattoos,
yeah.
there's a scene. It was like a close up of him and his Blade Runner tattoo, which is just on his neck. I was looking at it and I was like, "Is that a fucking Blade Runner tattoo?" And I was thinking, and I like literally my fucking like movie watching brain kicked into gear, and I was like, so does that mean that this like Blade Runner?" I was trying to figure out like the timeline of this universe, and I was like, "Wait, whoa," and I was like, "Oh no, it's just normal tattoos." I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
overthink it, but I was like, because
It's
I was
so
like,
awesome.
in my head, I was like, oh, they gave his character a Blade Runner tattoo. I was like,
Yeah, I
why?
know.
Why did they make that
Imagine
decision? I was like,
it's like in the
like
Lost Lands just happens like two
yeah, I
years
was
from
like,
now. Like it takes place in like 2027. It's just
and I was like, and then I was like, oh no, Dave Bautista just has a Blade Runner tattoo, and I
yeah,
was like,
yeah, no, it's well, it's like yeah, I don't know.
um,
I like the like level of, like that stuff doesn't matter, So like, it's like, very like they could have totally covered up, but like what for what?
and no, it doesn't matter. It's if anything, it just like it makes his character a little more interesting.
Yeah.
Having him having
I
tattoos because
love
his tattoos are already
I
cool.
wish they didn't get fucking chopped in half like that early, but I love the like fucking snake stuff where
yeah,
the
The
guy would
snake
like
was cool.
it was so I don't know that stuff rocked. And there was
No, it's just
yeah,
yeah,
the I really love the well there's like the evil church guys are like on this like high speed rail and then Mila Jovovich just like shows up and just like in front of it and they're like oh we gotta like run her down and it's like a super cool like slow mo train fly and then like they have this like they like I don't even know what you would the terminology for it was because it's like super digital fucking like zoom in to the train and then you like go in and they're like about to like fucking die I don't know. There's like crazy fucking action stuff going on in the movie.
yeah.
It's
I was
really
trying to
it
fun.
think of
doesn't.
what the
The look
church
of the
people reminded
film
me of.
the look of the film like I respect it.
Yeah.
It didn't always work for me. There's
Mhm.
like specifically like you kind of referenced it earlier. There's a scene where she's like wearing the sunglasses and there's a confrontation in like this
They're like
building.
where you're like looking at like the reflection of, are you talking about
Yeah,
that?
and the environments in that scene
Mhm.
for me were so garish and
Yeah.
so ugly where I was like it kind of like took me out of it where I was like where I was like I'm not watching a real movie anymore. I'm watching like a fucking Neil Breen movie because of this because of how
Yeah.
because like the environments in that scene were like it was all like really bright, really fucking blurry like CGI like
Mhm.
buildings and I was like Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But like a lot of the times though, I thought it looked cool and interesting. Like towards the end of the movie, where it was like raining and she's fighting the
Yeah.
werewolf,
That whole sequence
and
is
it's
so
like
cool.
and like the background is all dark and cloudy. I was like, that's cool, bro. That's fucking sick as hell.
Yeah.
You know,
There's a
but
sequence where it's like it's super beautiful and it's Mila Jovovich and Dave Bautista, and they're sitting by this campfire and it's like this really quiet and it's like the most beautiful little like like apocalyptic little like area they're in. And I think that's it's really interesting. Like that's kind of like this like pausing moment and this all this like crazy action that happens. I love the it kind of comes to the it happens at the end again, but like the opening shot where it's like out of focus like blue, and then Dave Bautista kind of like you could kind of sort of see his like figure come in, and then he like it like the way that it's such a quick the way that he comes into focus really fast like through this like kind of blue like shallow focus is like really I thought that was really beautiful. But yeah, I don't know. There's like it kind of ranges in between like really amazing stuff and then like it's okay. It's like it's kind of like but like it's kind of like the super harsh like kind of the CGI like world that they created here, which I think is it's just interesting. Is in like kind of the singularity of like there's probably not you don't expect another movie to look like this all year in terms of like this like big $50 million kind of thing. But it's still like going for it. It's not like it's in terms of like you compare it to
yeah,
like um
that's what's cool
you
about it.
compare it to a the like the Captain America stuff, and it's like that stuff looks like that out of like sort of because they don't want to go outside or like it's like
Yeah, it's
they
like then also the difference is like movies like that are kind of embarrassed to be movies in some ways,
exactly
for lack of a better word. Whereas this is like there's nothing. If anything, this in the Lost Lands lacks a lot of self awareness.
yeah
And that's
maybe
not even really a criticism, you know. But
sure
it's so like yeah, we're this is a Western sci-fi movie, and this is what it's about, and there's a big map so you can keep track of where we're going, and
yeah no
and
exactly
everything's fake, and
yeah
we're gonna explain it's so silly.
it's yeah
Um,
no I don't know I think it's interesting but I don't have too much else to talk about it about but I think he's great I think he's a lot of fun and it was cool I've been seeing that was my first time seeing one of his movies in theaters so that was cool it's cool to see that.
Oh wow, really? What was the last movie
The
he made?
Monster
I guess I
Hunter
don't.
came out in
Right.
2021, I think.
yeah, it was a million years
Okay.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, Owen was just like 15 back
I
then.
just turned 13 actually
yeah.
right before Monster Hunter came out.
So I
Uh,
wasn't able to get into the Monster Hunter.
Right. Yeah.
but it's interesting. These are two big cult filmmakers. I mean, Bong
Yeah.
Joon-ho is
Different
bigger,
cults, but
Yeah.
different
Well,
cults, but like yeah,
I felt there was definitely like I put them both on my like little like video game list because I did like kind of like respawning concept of like the thing and
yeah.
they had the super like and I've liked that idea of not to go back to Mickey 17, but I kind of like the idea of when Mickey I feel like normally like in a lot of the like sci-fi movies we've been getting recently, like Mickey's character would have been a robot, right? Like I feel
Right.
like the fact that he is human and like he's having struggles with his humanity, but he's not he's a human. They just kind
Yeah.
of I don't know. I like that element, but yeah, I don't know. Super weird. I loved. I mean, great double feature. Not that I went saw him back to that, but I saw him same week,
Yeah.
and
You could go see it
um,
back to back if you're listening to
yeah,
this and want to
no,
go
but
to theaters.
really great movie, a really great week for
Yeah.
movies. I mean, we have
It's also like
Black Bag next week. I've been like the stuff that not that I've seen a ton of movies that came out in this section, but like the stuff that I have seen, minus some stinkers, like some really great interesting stuff. Like, I mean, two
Yeah.
Soderberghs, a Bong Joon-ho, a Paul W. Sanderson movie.
No, this year
like-
is ridiculous so far.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm loving it. I really not like they're. I really liked a lot of these stuff movies for very different reasons, but just really enjoyable,
Yeah.
kind of interesting, kind of.
And like none of the
movies.
art movies have even come out yet. This is just Hollywood stuff, you
Right.
know? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's almost
Um,
like this is the Hollywood stuff that they're like dumping, right? It's like this is the
Yeah.
Hollywood stuff that they're not confident in, and a lot of it's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and like with in the Lost Lands and Presence, like really interesting, like kind of formal
Yeah.
exploration stuff that I think should be thought about a little more, maybe. But
Right.
Presence is good. I'll say it.
good movie. It's a good movie.
I don't know how we got there, but yeah,
Yeah,
we're
okay.
gonna we're gonna move on and talk about some news. I want to remind people, of course, to share some feedback if you like listening to us talk about either of those movies by liking, commenting, and subscribing on YouTube, and by rating the episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I think we're close to 100 ratings on Spotify, which would be a cool number to reach. And you can follow us on all of our medias, our Twitter, and everything else in the episode description. Couple big pieces of news, some we don't have to talk about a ton. This one is like a little bit weird. I went through the kind of the full article to pull out a couple of the different headlines that were generated from it, but a Hollywood Reporter article gave us a couple big updates about James Bond and the Broccoli Amazon buyout. So I'm just going to kind of summarize everything all at once here. First thing worth noting, which I think everybody listening just knows already, is that still so far at this moment, no script, no director, no actor attached for whatever they do next. But then the bigger thing that we learned, the two bigger things that we learned, one is that Amazon approached the Broccoli's with pitches for a Moneypenny spinoff, and this was before the buyout happened. And then we find out that an article which revealed that Barbara Broccoli called the Amazon execs fucking idiots to her friends was posted. And Jeff Bezos saw this article and said, I don't care what it costs, get rid of her. Now, it's worth noting that in the Hollywood Reporter article, they say that when they reached out to representatives, Amazon denied that Bezos ever made such a statement. Not crazy to picture the most evil guy alive making such a statement, though. And then ultimately, another thing revealed in the article is that they paid Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, quote, close to $1 billion to walk away from the franchise. Like an absurd amount of money. So that's everything that we learned
This
from this
is
new
so
article.
funny. This is so funny because for a couple of reasons. One of them is a Moneypenny TV show spinoff is really stupid. That's just a really stupid idea, you know?
Something I will say, something the article mentioned, and it would take some sort of like effort, and I think specifically would need to be backed by an existing new James Bond like series. But the article referenced The Penguin, which was like a huge
Yeah,
success because
exactly.
of the Batman. And it's like,
Yeah.
I do see a world in which if there were a new James Bond and they released the first or second new James Bond movie, then a Moneypenny spinoff could kill it on TV. But like as
That's a
its
lot of
own
ifs. There's a lot of
yeah,
ifs going on. Like,
but
yeah.
as its own thing, that's such a weird risk. Like you wouldn't start by launching your new era of James Bond with a spin-off TV show that's not about James Bond. Like you would need it to be
Yeah.
established in the world of some new, series. So
Yeah.
that's what's strange about that.
And also James Bond enters the public domain in 10 years.
Does it?
So yeah, it does. In 2035, James Bond enters the public domain. James Bond's old as fucking balls, bro. So
Let's start writing
that's-
that James Bond script, guys. Let's get to
No,
work
yeah,
on
that's
that.
what's kind of that's funny too, where it's like you got $1 billion for something that enters the public domain. And granted, it's like the public
What
domain is
if-
very specific in terms of like the kind of things that it
So
covers.
she
but,
gets $1 billion and then she just like makes her
That's
own.
what people
James
say.
Bond.
Barbara Broccoli just makes another James Bond movie. in
$1
10
million
years.
dollar.
I don't know. I think part of what they
James
said
Bond
is that
movie to Christopher Nolan.
part of what they said is that when Barbara Broccoli took over as like kind of the sole face of the operation, since Michael G. Wilson was like, I guess just getting old pretty much, is that like she's also getting old, and she mentions how much work it is to make these James Bond movies because uh a whole list of reasons, but like um yeah, I don't know that in 2035 she'd want to make a James Bond movie. I think she probably wants to retire. And that's
Yeah,
a pretty
Tom
good
Yeah,
Holland Jr. is gonna be James
they're
Bond by
already
uh
then.
old. No,
yeah.
yeah. It's
Um
interesting. I would say though, like very I doubt like the Jeff Bezos quote is like that evil where he's like get rid of her no matter the cost. It's probably just
Probably
like
more
no,
evil,
it's
but like,
probably
Yeah, it's
just
probably
like
he probably said some crazy words.
yeah.
he probably got wind of like Barbara Broccoli like speaking negatively about their idea like really openly, and he was like just buy it, just like fuck it, just like
Yeah,
buy James Bond,
sure.
because
Which is
just
interesting.
like throw it's literally what they did to get the rights for Rings of Power. He just like just throw
Right.
as much money as you need to get the rights to it, which has not worked out for them. But
Yeah, what the fuck are they doing?
um
Buy me the IP.
no, it's like literally just like buy me,
I
yeah.
want
Yeah.
IP.
But it's I don't know.
Yeah.
They also in the article they mentioned how they talked about the idea of doing a female led or a woman led 007 movie.
Yeah. Well, I think they
Um
said in the article it was a series. Like they pitched it as a series,
oh,
maybe.
what is wrong with them?
Or maybe
What
not.
is wrong
Maybe it did say movie, but I feel like it said series. I feel like they were
Why?
definitely like
Why you spend all this
leaning
money to get
into.
James Bond and then make TV?
Yeah, it makes no sense. I mean, every James Bond movie, at least in like the modern era, like the Craig era, made what, like 500 million at the box office. It's like that's like an infinite money glitch. You could just do that forever. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know.
David Leitch's James Bond.
Jesus. Anyway,
Oh
that's the
yeah.
James Bond update that we have. We'll, I'm sure this will not be the
Infinite
last
money
time we
glitch.
talk about James Bond
This is
anytime
the last
soon. I'm
time,
sure it'll come up
actually.
again.
It's a
But
banned word on this podcast from now on.
yeah. Our next piece of news has to do with a franchise that we just mentioned. Sony to release a new Resident Evil reboot movie from Barbarian director Zach Kreger in
Zach
September
Kreger.
of
Yeah.
2026. It's worth noting because I saw some people mention like
Yeah.
Weapons in regard to this, which is also supposed to come out next year. Weapons still coming out according to this article, so
What's
that
the
it does
what's
not.
the release date on Weapons?
I don't know the exact date, but it is 2026, I think.
So the Weapons is filmed, done, and
And
he
then
The
James
James
already
Bond.
Bond
Oh,
filmed.
sorry.
yes.
Resident
He
Evil is
already
not filmed
filmed
yet.
Resident. Oh, it's not filmed yet.
No, not
He
filmed yet.
has
I
he
don't
has
think
to
it's shot
film
yet.
that now,
Yeah.
but they're coming out
Yeah.
like the same year. Interesting.
What
Yeah.
I think is interesting is like it makes so much sense. You guys don't play a lot of games, but you like know about Resident Evil. Like this is a
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
popular
Oh
fucking
no, of
like
course.
video
Yeah.
game series, right? I'll go even further and I'll say Resident Evil 4, which is the one where Leon Kennedy is introduced as like the main
Mhm.
character. That is like one of the most popular video game stories of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am going to bet. I would bet hard cold cash that whatever this next Resident Evil movie, because in the article they're like it will resemble more closely to the video games,
Yeah.
which obviously the Paul W.S. Anderson movies. It's like the main character in that is like not is like a totally unique
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
It's like I would bet fucking cash like Leon Kennedy is going to be the main character of whatever this fucking new Resident Evil movie
Yeah.
is. Um,
Well, it's interesting bringing up Paul W. Sanderson. Like those movies are not well liked by the actual fans of the game. It's like
yeah,
more of like Paul taking it as like, oh, this is a sandbox and I'm gonna play in it and I'm gonna make the
yeah.
movies I want to make. I'm gonna make this like kind of story that I want to make. And then, fans of games aren't like really into that kind of stuff. They're like, I want my game on the like translated. It's kind of like the comic book stuff where it's like, I want this exact thing just in this form. So
Well,
I
it's
think,
just so different than the game. It's so different from the
yeah, no,
games,
I
and
know,
it's
I
like
know,
if you
but
were a
it's like
fan of the game, there's no reason for you to. Yeah, yeah,
it's but I think that's kind of like the what's interesting with talking about something like Minecraft, which I think kind of went the wrong way with that sort of thing. Where it's like a lot of people like who like the game are definitely not. I don't think there's not really an audience for that movie,
Yeah.
but I think the game plan here when we're talking about like Resident Evil being this really big franchise is like if you make something that the people who like the games like kind of like the Five Nights at Freddy's thing, where it's like make something for the people who like the game, and you will reap the benefits of that. And
Yeah,
maybe
I think the interesting thing or the difference is that like it's adult and like like with Minecraft, it's like
sure.
as somebody who's an adult now
Yeah,
who has enjoyed playing Minecraft his whole life, like that movie, not for me. You know, like I watched the trailer and I'm
sure.
like,
Yeah, no.
this does not
Jennifer
represent my
Coolidge
interest.
hits a villager
However,
with her car.
yeah, however, uh, that movie could still be massively successful because of an audience of
Sure,
young kids who love Minecraft. In the same way
sure.
that like Jack Black doing the Mario movie was successful because like
Mhm.
kids
Yeah,
still love those games. So it's like Resident Evil's different
fair,
because it's adult. Like it's not like
fair.
the audience is always there to adapt kids video game movies because the kids will go see it. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
I think
Um
I just I think it's interesting with the Resident Evil because they have that whole franchise that Paul did, and I think there's another movie that they made like like it was like Resident Evil like Rat Race or something. I don't know if that's if I'm making that up, but
Raccoon City, Resident
that's what
Evil
it is.
Raccoon
That's what it
City.
is. Yeah.
Yes.
So they made another movie, and then that like no one really liked that or something, and now they're doing a
right.
whole nother thing with it. It definitely is a lot of Resident Evil,
Yeah.
but
I
it
think
makes sense.
another thing about that Raccoon City movie is like it featured original characters also.
Yeah, people don't fuck
That's
with the original
well,
characters.
that's why I really like. I would be really
Yeah.
surprised. I really think it's going to be Leon Kennedy. If this new one's whatever the Zack Cracker thing is just going to be, it's probably
Yeah.
not only it's probably going to star Leon Kennedy as like the main character, because at least to me, he has to be like the most. He's one of the most iconic video game characters. I would be not surprised if it's just like a straight up adaptation of Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
If it's
Also,
just like Resident Evil 4 the movie.
I don't know if this is accurate, but it seems like the weapons movie is supposed to come out early into 2026. So it's possible too that they just like see Zach Cregger as a hot director and they're like people like
Yeah.
Barbarian kind of like a
So
big hit and then like maybe if they're confident in weapons and it comes out at the
yeah,
beginning of the year, then it's very easy to
one of
use the director of
the
weapons as marketing for the new Resident Evil.
so yeah. Okay, so we have Vertigo Entertainment's Roy Lee, who he produced Barbarian, but also Minecraft, and then Miri Yoon produced Weapons, and also then the PlayStation is involved there. So there's like kind of like this like kind of they're they kind of know each. There's some knowledge of like okay, we know you, we worked on each other, and we also worked on these video game things. So there's connections of the
Yeah.
kind of the way
Yeah,
that's
I could see that.
operating there, where it's like it makes sense.
Right.
And he Resident Zach Cregger was like, I'm a big fan of these games. Like I totally
Sure.
like this is
Yeah.
something I want to do. And
Our next piece of news, Adrian Brody is in talks to star alongside Leonardo DiCaprio in Damien Chazelle's Evil Knievel film, an update for our Evil Knievel movie.
This movie's gonna be fucking ridiculous, bro. This movie's gonna be so ridiculous.
I'm so in.
This is
man.
like fun. I
Like
I
it.
like that.
No,
I
yeah,
like
it's
that
cool.
Adrian
Like
Brody. I'm
it.
like, this
Fuck
is
no, like,
silly.
yeah, fuck it.
This is
I
gonna be
think it's cool.
awesome.
I've there's a lot of conversation on Brody recently, and I do like I've kind of agreed with like there's some talk about Twitter like super actor brain guy who like is kind of ridiculous, but like knows how to fucking act. Like he, it's like
Right.
he's a ridiculous human being, but like if you give him the right material, he's gonna like really do well.
Yeah.
And like he was in some good stuff and like a lot of Wes Anderson stuff, but like some garbage as well. And I think
Sure.
it's cool. Like I think with this Oscar win, like he's kind of back into like top dog type shit where it's like his name has never been bigger.
Yeah.
And
I think
I think it's good for him.
problem yeah, I think the problem with those conversations is that like people are like, "Oh, super actor brain guy," and like that's like the end of it. They're like, "That sucks," and I'm like,
Well,
"That's
it's like
probably good
super
to have.
actor brain
It's
guy.
probably
That guy
good to
should
have a
probably be
couple of these
acting.
guys."
Actor Brain does
Yeah.
not suck. Actor Brain is actually very important. It's
Yeah, I'm
really
like, it's
important
probably
that we
cool.
have
It's
these.
it's good to have
Yeah.
guys like Adrian Brody. I'm like, I don't
No,
really.
we
You don't
need-
have
need,
to like them as human beings,
Yeah,
but like we
exactly.
need
Like,
people
even
like
if
this to
he's-
be actors in our
Exactly.
movies.
That's the
Like,
thing. It's like
Yeah.
he actor brain. That's why I want him acting. Right. It's like
Right,
I don't want him
yeah.
to do anything else but acting.
no, that's
Right.
the thing where people were talking about Adrian Brody's art, right? And it's
Yeah,
like,
it's like,
yeah,
I don't
you don't like who cares about that? It's like
Yeah,
you don't need
I
to
don't give
like
a
that.
fuck.
It's
If
like
any-
anything, I would I like it more that it sucks because it's there's almost like it's like it's
Yeah.
cool that there's like this disconnect between like he might not even like know how to do this stuff, but he knows how to fucking act.
Yeah.
So it's like
No, it's like that's a real deal actor who can't do anything else but
Yeah.
act. and think that's what I
Exactly.
want.
That's
I want.
incredible. It's like
Yeah.
essential actually.
We need
Uh,
that. It's a part of this ecosystem that we need.
Speaking of real deal actors, next piece of news: Charlie XCX is eyed for a key
Woohoo!
role in Greta
Let's
Gerwig's upcoming
go.
Narnia movie,
Let's go.
potentially as Jadis the White Witch, but not
The
confirmed.
White Witch.
Um,
I mean,
I know Owen was very
I'll be
excited
there
about
day
this
one,
news.
right? IMAX tickets. I'll be
I love
there.
Charlie XCX.
What's it with
one
her
of
just
the
being
like
cast in like 15 different movies before any of them come out? Like she's
well,
just
because
like,
she
Because no one can know if she's
Brat
a good
happened.
actress or not because they
Yeah.
haven't seen the movie. So you
no,
got
yeah, I
line
know,
them
but
all
she's
up,
like
right?
she's like pivoting hard into acting.
Yeah, she's pivoting. Brat happened. You know, she became like friends with Rachel Sennett,
Sennett.
and it's like and it's like really like it's like she just decided she wants to be in movies, so she's
Yeah.
going to just be
Yeah.
in movies now.
It's
And
awesome.
Listen,
Okay, why
one
not?
of the most significant artists in my entire life is Charlie XCX. I'm not gonna say anything bad about her, but it's like I don't know. About
Yeah,
It's
Doug's
awesome.
Doug's not crazy.
I
about
can't
this.
wait for all of these movies.
No, I mean, listen, I'm excited.
Even the one where
Now that I know they're
Spider-Man-
getting the theatrical release as well, like it's like I think this is cool,
Well,
and I have
I'd be
confidence in Greta Gerwig.
I'm
despite
interested in like the vibe of this film because
whatever we hear.
they've kind of talked about it like they haven't really talked about a lot about it, but they're like, oh, it's a different take. They use the phrase rock and roll here. Like it's like, okay, this is obviously gonna
they're saying
feel
it's gonna be a musical.
it's
That's
gonna
like, that's a
feel and look
rumor.
like a different like it's not gonna look like the fucking one that we had in the early 2000s. Like
When we
I'm
were
interested
kids,
in the
yeah.
vibes that, and I think Charlie XCX being involved definitely gives you kind of okay, this is not going to be the same vibe. We can't really it's tough to really predict what it's going to be like. But I don't know. It's weird. I like it. It's out there.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. I was saying that a better start cast would be Caroline Polachek.
Yeah.
Caroline Polachek as the witch, but
Yeah, well,
yeah.
maybe there's more than one role.
Yeah, maybe you make your own Narnia movie, Doug.
Oh yeah, that's it, I guess.
I don't really want to. I'm gonna be honest. It seems like a lot of work.
Yeah. Steve Carell, Jason Schwartzman, Corey Michael Smith, and Rami Youssef
Schwartzman.
to star in Succession
yeah.
creator Jesse Armstrong's debut feature film for HBO. And
I was
follows a
just
group
being
of
like,
billionaire
where's the
friends who
next
get
movie
together
Rami's gonna
against
be
the
in?
backdrop of an international
I was thinking that
crisis.
yesterday.
Oh, Rami?
Yeah, I was like, this guy.
Yeah, I really like him.
He was in Poor
I mean,
Things, and I was like, never heard of him.
New Jersey
Like I said,
legend,
he was like, he would
you
show up at award shows, and he would be really cool. But like, into the movie from Rami.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen the show.
Yeah, you haven't seen Succession, but also worth noting, and again, it's important that this is his debut feature as a director, I guess. But like, Succession is not the only good thing he's written, and he's also writing this. He is like been consistently writing funny stuff. I mean, he did friend of the pod Seth, who knows about the show better than Americans do. He wrote for Peep Show, which is like a massive hit, and like incredibly funny among or talked about as incredibly funny among British audiences. Four Lions is a fucking hilarious movie. Like he
wrote
Four Lions.
Yeah, like he can write, like he is a
but
funny
can he
guy.
direct?
Right, that's the question. But like he has a cast and there's no doubt. Again, the subject of the movie I'm not like crazy about because it does sound pretty closely aligned with Succession. But like I think when people read the subject, I just wanted to make it clear by mentioning like Four Lions and Peep Show and stuff that like it's not like he just does Succession over and over and over again. You know what I mean? Like he has, but the plot for this sounds a lot like Succession. And so I think a lot of people are going to read it and be like, oh, it's Succession, the movie, but it's like, he has range as a writer, at least. It's
I'm
just
interested.
that this is another thing about billionaires. So,
Will Adam McKay be involved in this film?
Right. Yeah.
I'm interested in that a little bit.
I'm curious. I'm like worried when I read the description and like paired with the fact that it's him writing it. I'm like, okay, are they just like making The Big Short again or something? Like, which I don't know if I like need to watch, but like, I'm optimistic. Listen, if he's not a good director, it ends up being like just like a funny long TV episode, which like sure.
There's some people that probably got super pumped up when they heard this news For
Yeah,
me, I'm kind
probably.
of like, I'm gonna have to
I mean,
wait and see, bro.
I
I'm
love
gonna have to wait and see.
Succession. Like
Yeah,
Succession, one of my favorite shows
Hey,
ever now.
all of these
Uh,
actors by themselves
Succession is good.
Great
are
actors.
good.
I love all
Corey
those people.
Michael
Yeah, I mean,
Smith.
yeah, seeing Corey Michael Smith and like what seems to be the third build role here is like
Yeah,
awesome. Cool for Corey Michael. Yeah, and you mentioned Rami, who like I love.
Corey Michael Smith is the
And
Riddler in the Gotham TV show.
wrong. Yeah, wrong. Not the same thing, but yeah. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm interested to see what happens. Speaking of writing, last piece of news here. Game Night and Dungeons and Dragons duo John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein to write the Monopoly movie from producer Margot Robbie. We've talked about this. We talked about this on the pod like a
What
year
a-
ago, I think, when they announced that they were going to make all these like Hasbro movies and
Yeah,
like
all
Uno
these
was
has-been
included and
movies.
stuff. Like it was like a weird collection
Yeah.
of games associated. I guess when we talked about it, we mentioned that like Monopoly is the most obvious one to turn into. But like I don't know what they're going to do with Uno, but Monopoly seems like the most obvious one. And I thought it would be. It probably will be like the dumbest shit ever. But at the very least, they got two really good writers to do it. So maybe
Yeah, well, it's
it'll
like
be funny.
I
It's probably
really
still gonna be
like
like a
these
kids
guys, and
movie.
I want to support them, but I think
Yeah.
their next movie has Ryan Reynolds in it.
It does, yeah. It does.
And now it's like this Monopoly movie, and I'm like, damn, guys, can we just make
Well,
Dungeons and Dragons 2? Like,
they are like my understanding is that they are like everybody in Hollywood wants to work with them. Like
yeah, no,
everybody
they're a
wants
hot
them writing their
ticket,
movies.
man.
So I get that this would be the path for them because they're going to get
well,
paid for writing this stuff.
Paul Giamatti, get ready, man.
Yeah,
Can we get-
this is your
Monopoly
dream
guy?
This is your Oscar-winning role here.
Yeah.
Chris Pine is so old.
Yeah, he's gonna shrivel up before we can get Dungeons too.
No, that's what I'm saying, bro. It's
Well,
so
I guess
fucked up.
they would have to.
He's
like,
such
it's
an
gonna happen.
incredible actor, bro.
Is
Like
they're
in
gonna-
movie star, he's such an incredible movie star.
The movie's gonna come out in 10 years, and then we're gonna have an entirely new campaign in the cast because they're all too
Yeah.
fucking old and shit.
Well, maybe one of the people
the cool thing to do would be to bring the whole same cast back, but have them play different characters.
Yeah,
That's the
no, that
real
would be
creative, like,
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so
Yeah.
fun, especially if they're like swapping like archetypes too, and like
Yeah, exactly.
like
yes,
Justice
yeah,
Smith is playing like the main character instead, and like yeah, that'd be fun. Damn,
But
great
no,
idea.
Yeah, well,
Probably
too
not
bad.
gonna happen. Given
Too bad
what
we're
it
gonna
looks
get
like
it
the future.
Monopoly 1 and Monopoly
Yeah.
2. And
Well, also the
Monopoly
thing is,
3.
like, if you're making a board game movie, just make Game Night too instead of Monopoly. I think that would. I
we're
would
bringing up sequels to movies that didn't make money.
sure, but like. But I think Game Night has developed a bit more of a following since its release. I think a second movie would be more successful than the first, but still,
Right.
I mean, it makes sense. Like these guys are a big deal. It makes sense that they're doing the Monopoly thing. Whatever, maybe it'll be funny.
no, I love them. I think they're great.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. Like I want them to be
But
as successful
I
as
don't know,
possible.
they're-
I hope that they
maybe
get
they-
that chance.
They're making some weird career choices.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, Owen alluded to it earlier. Next week, episode 109, we're going to be talking about the new Steven Soderbergh movie, Black Bag. So we'll see you later.